Yo, what is up, guys? How's it going? And I hope you're having a fantastic Friday and you're psyched for the weekend. I'm psyched because I'm here with three awesome content creators and we're going to talk everything Overwatch ladder, particularly fixing the competitive integrity. So, on that front, let me waste no time and introduce my guests, starting with some of the newer ones. You're all sick of Samito's face by now. But let's start to the left of me on my side. My man Stylosa, how you doing?
Hello, I'm not doing too bad. How are you doing?
I'm good. Sipping that tea. I like it. I like it. The British are rising. Half of us now, for once on the podcast, British. Bottom left, we've got EeveeA. EeveeA, how you doing?
Hello, hello. I'm doing pretty good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, first time on the podcast, so welcome. Glad to have you here. And yeah, our frequent guest now, my man Samito. Sam, what up?
How's it going, man?
Going very good. I'm excited for this. It's all sparked from one of your tweets, which we will get to in a minute. But before we get right into the thick of it, back and forth hot takes, I want to just get a little bit of a establishing moment, which is I want to get your guys' opinion roughly on how you rate the competitive integrity of ladder and how you rate your enjoyment of it on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being absolute dog shit, could not be worse. 10 being it's absolutely perfect. How do you feel about the competitive integrity of ladder and how do you feel about your enjoyment of it? And we'll go with Stylosa first.
Okay, so I don't think there's any competitive integrity on the ladder if you're coming at it from the viewpoint of playing together in a structured team, actually looking to win. Like, I know Samito's got experience with pro level play, but the stark difference between ladder and pro level play, even tier 3 play, is absolutely massive. You can actually argue that even if you've got top 500 level players, they don't necessarily translate very well into organized team play because of what ladder does to them. And I think that's just honestly indicative of how bad ladder is at actually conditioning players to play together in a team, because all it really does is incentivizes you doing whatever to win in any given game rather than actually working together with your team to beat the opposition. I know that kind of doesn't make sense, but I hope it sort of
No,
does
it
in some
100%
ways. You
does.
know what I mean? It's like the game, like the I mean, competitive integrity is a massive topic in itself for Overwatch, but I think at the end of the day, if you look at the way, if I look at the way I played Overwatch, um, you pick a hero, you want to play that hero because you identify with that hero on the level. Maybe you just like the look of the hero. I think for me, I remember Zarya was the first hero I put a ton of time into, just because I literally like the look of Zarya. I was like, I'm going to put time into Zarya. Um, and then, of course, there would have been times where I'd play her over, maybe other heroes that would have made sense at the time in whatever the see. Well, in fact, in season 1 and season 2, I was forced to play bloody Reinhardt all the time because that's all I ever played. So people would just look at my profile and go,
Oh
you
yeah.
got to play Ryan. I'm
Well,
like, please, no, I want to play Zarya. But yeah,
that's
I just think like the game isn't really set up to um, foster actual competitive integrity. When you start looking through the tiers of Overwatch and you look at ladder, you look at going into tier 3, tier 2, and then going into Overwatch League. 'Cause you've got to remember as well, I've had quite a fair bit of experience with Hurricane and also into Spitfire. So I've been able to see the way these systems worked. And it's like, it's terrible. You think like on the outside, hey, I'm just going to look at the ladder and go, okay, we need a main tank. Let's find a main tank. But the difference in skill is just all over the place. Even like, within the top 10 tanks, it's just
that's
difficult.
crazy.
I
I do want
want
to. Sorry.
to.
Just quickly before I go, Evie, I just want to pin you down a number style so we can just have a little comparison point. 1 to 10.
On competitive integrity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 1 if you compare it to something like Counter-Strike or any other competitive FPS game. Compare it to Valorant or something. I don't know. It's not much there. It's Overwatch's issue is it's like always fighting between being this like really fun, enjoyable game where wacky things happen, and then hey, we want to be competitive, and it's like it's hard to mash them together on the same ladder. Anyway,
I got you. That definitely
so
makes
low.
sense. Sorry, EVA.
Let's say 3. Let's say 3.
3. Okay, being a little bit kinder, 3. But EVA,
Yeah,
sorry
yeah.
I interrupted you. Carry on now. Your turn. You tell
So,
me.
so I mean, I would say like 4.5 ish in that range. But I wanted to say, Sty, expand on specifically what is competitive integrity to you.
So okay, so I used to play competitive sports. I used to play SVB will know this. I used to play for a team called Port Vale, and I played for West
Hey.
Bromwich Albion years and years ago. So this was like fairly professional level football. I only played at a YTS youth level, so up to like 17, 18. But it was you're there to win. You are in a team. You play as a team, and you win. It doesn't matter if you're an exceptional player, you still play within a team to win. So for me, Overwatch was always, okay, it's a team-based game. This is what drew me to the game in the first place. And okay, we can work together. You might have players like I always used to play. This will probably come as no shock to people, but I used to play in central midfield, and I was the captain of most of the teams I played in because I just shout at everyone. I'd be like, you know, just go over there, do this, do that. So in Overwatch, it was like, hey, I can play a tank, and I can be like, set up plays. I can, you know, look out for stuff, and that is what attracted me to the game in the first place. So like when I'm talking about competitive integrity, I'm talking about a framework of plugging players into to let them play together as a team that incentivizes them playing together as a team to beat the other team, which then gives them appropriate rewards for doing so. Not just going, I'm just going to play hog all the time because I'm just going to run around flanking and look at this. I'm 4,300, so haha, who cares? That
Well,
ain't, that is not good to me.
So dismantle that though. Is it that people are not playing to win, or more specifically, is that people are playing for the wrong reasons?
Yeah, no, so it's the game. The game incentivizes the wrong style of play. The tank example I gave is very loose there. So the road, like Reinhardt and Roadhog, okay, so you can just go around flank and do whatever you like on Hog, right? It's annoying to play in a team. Everyone hates that when that starts happening, but it's very effective. Reinhardt playing with his team, and his team might be letting him down, even though you could say he's doing the right things at that any given moment in time. He's not actually getting anywhere. So that player thinks, screw this, I'm going to be more selfish, I think is the key word, and just play the Hog. I mean, that's a loose example, but Overwatch never ever really rewards the team component of the game, which I've always found dead weird. And it's 100% a design decision on the game's part. 100%. It's not the player's fault. It's
It doesn't reward the
Based
things it's
on that,
advertising.
Will 5v5 alleviate that or make it
A little
worse
bit.
to you?
I think so, yeah, Evie. I think a little bit because you've got one less player, so you've got one less thing to worry about.
I think to me, part of the communication and team play aspect, one thing that isn't getting talked about as much is the already confirmed ping system that we'll be having as well,
Yeah.
which will alleviate the no mic, don't pay attention to team mentality, focus on yourself. Whereas I feel like pings will make things a lot more fluid in communication in a team where if it was 6v6, I think it would be too chaotic, which is one of the reasons why they didn't implement it in the first place. But I think with 5v5, pings will be helpful enough and potent enough information to help alleviate that team play aspect and encouraging, you know, capitalizing off of that little bit of communication that you do get.
Mm-hmm. So just to recap, sorry, you said around 4 and 4.5. So that's your general feelings on competitive integrity.
I would say, you know, I'm a little bit less critical in regards to like in the pre of talking about the, you know, quick play versus ladder versus like something like Face It, right? You know, those are like completely three different like experiences in comparison to just non-competitive versus competitive. I think that there's a lot more nuance in those regards for sure. So yes, 4.5-ish.
Mm-hmm. And how, just for, it's good to have all these references. How would you define competitive integrity?
For me, also, do you want me to keep turning myself up here?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. I've got you 200 on my end, but a little bit up would be great. Perfect. That's great.
That's okay. So yeah, so competitive integrity, I think that it's really what it comes down to at the bottom line, and I know this is a phrase that a lot of you will have opinions on, but as long as people are playing to win, right? As long as people are playing to win in their mind, regardless of what that comes down to, as long as everybody's playing to win, then you have a much better environment than what we have now, frankly. Not many people are playing to win, and I think a huge amount of that is the incentives, say, the gold weapons, the like, part of my mind, for example, is we shouldn't have literally any incentive to play comp other than the number. That's it. There should be zero incentive. But right now, as we have it, we already have more incentives to play than just the improving and getting better as an individual player.
That is a really... Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, the amount of people that, you know, we're streamers, right? So the amount of times that you've probably had in your chat of like, oh, what gold gun should I get? Or, oh, you know, I just got this. That's the focus for so many players. It's not about the self-improvement. It's not about the playing well or making a play based on game knowledge or skill. It's about, hey, I got my gold gun. You know, that's a huge aspect for a huge amount of players.
Yeah, and that is a fantastic point that I'm definitely going to bring to later, but I do want to hear from our final guest quickly before we dive deeper into any one topic. And I've been leaving our man in the corner there because I'm giving him the super hot fire. I'm about to end this man's whole career moment because he's been sitting there real patiently. So, Sam, out of 10, competitive integrity, and please go ahead and define competitive integrity for
It's like
your
a 0.
POV.
It's literally like it's I give it a 1 maybe. Now I will say that I would have rated it higher before I actually got the chance to play in a scrim environment. And I think Overwatch's biggest trump card for Overwatch 2 is going to be that they've never actually delivered the true Overwatch experience that I think we've been talking about, which is the team play, right? So I define competitive integrity as it's not about how good you are, anything like that. It's about having a full roster of players trying their best to win. Now, what I'd like to elaborate on is the point of trying their best to win, because that's kind of the difference. If you are not willing to work with your team, and this was what my one trick tweet was about, and counterpick or talk in a solo queue environment, which I will open up a conversation that later if you don't mind, SVB, because
Absolutely.
I would love a group queue. Love it. Love it. It solves every problem. It would be amazing. That's kind of where I was going with it last week, but it's all good. But no, competitive integrity is about ensuring that the game is being played properly. And the only one way to play the game properly in all of Overwatch, doesn't matter what SR you are, does not matter what hero you pick, is that you are working with your team and communicating and making the effort to collaborate, right? And a lot of the issues you see on that. Now, I will say nowadays, I think Elliot hit the nail on the head there, where it's like, okay, well, people don't try to win anymore. Like they just don't. Like it's just, people don't care. And I think the reason why people don't play to win anymore was because back in the day when we were faced with the decision, okay, well, what do? We chose to not enforce competitive integrity. And over time, more and more players like myself and other people were just like, well, okay, well, if Blizzard's not going to step up format-wise, I think Sty hit that on the head too, where it's like the game doesn't do this. It's the game's fault for not encouraging you or systematically creating that proper environment.
But what's weird though, Sam, is originally the very first version of competitive was team. It was 6v6 teams. That was it. You could not queue on your own. So they know. They damn well know. But they also know how long is that going to last. We need solo queue. You need the dynamic queues. You have to get people doing that. And
That
the
is
other
true.
issue is in a scrim environment, which is fantastic. I've played in limited scrim environments, but I've had the opportunity to watch Hurricane, Spitfire, and all those teams do it behind closed doors, and it's fantastic. But they are like, they know each other. They play together week in, week out. They've built the rapport with each other on ladder. Unless you're literally at the highest end of the game and you bump into the same players over and over again. How do you do this? How can Overwatch facilitate this? So it's got these like deep ingrained problems where how do you actually build a team? Like you just, you literally hope you get players that will play the roles that will build a team comp. Okay, we went through all of that shit. They bring out role queue, so it makes it a little bit easier. So they can't, I think they do, or at least they did deep down kind of know this is a problem. But I think a lot of the sort of forfeits they've had to make is just so there's actually people playing competitive,
That's
which
true.
is frustrating.
But how much of this is a format issue versus a player mentality issue?
So
And how much does that feed into each other too, as well?
I think this might sound silly, but I don't think from Blizzard's standpoint, because at the end of the day, like the community will always be the community. As Blizzard, like you are the one in the steering wheel, and it's on you to do what's in your power to make it happen. Sty, I think that to elaborate on what you were saying, that's completely right. Like you can't, like assuming that everyone can queue as a team for your product is not feasible. But I dare say now that quick play is so good, quick play is out of this world to where solo queue environments to learn heroes and learn the game are applicable, and you can do that there. But I'd like to cite kind of what's happened with Warzone, at least in my personal friend group, and give you all a little bit of story about my friends and what we've been doing. So my friends, we have a very wide range in player ability. Like my good buddy Harrison, I think is 800 SR, right? And so when we play Warzone, we stack with, I'm one of our players and I have like maybe like a 3 KD. Harrison has a 0.3 KD. My roommate Johnny has like a 1, and my buddy Blake has like a 2, right? But even with that SR disparity, the more we played together as a core and were able to take away from the experiences of the game and learn together, they gradually grew as players as well and were able to learn. And granted, that was 4v4, not 5v5, right? Which I do think that actually is a big benefit to 5v5, as you guys did mention. But we were actually able to take away something from every game, even when we're losing. And no system can be perfect 100%, but the complete neglect to look at that from or act on that over the last 4 years of Blizzard have created a domino effect of people caring less and less. And ultimately, I might have not answered that question at all. I apologize. So tell me if I didn't. I'm trying to do EeveeA's first and then move on. So you guys know how my brain works. I'm so sorry. But it's on Blizzard to try to create a competitive environment where the players can always take something from it. And you do that by trying to get people to stack as a team. Now, it doesn't even have to be 6 stacks, right? It could be a clan. Like I said, I would love a clan queue, right? But there needs to be something, because that is the true essence of Overwatch. And I think your point about how even when looking on ladder, when you're talking about your time at Hurricane and Spitfire, the difference, and you're learning a completely different game. And like when I first learned that, and I fed so hard in scrims the first like 3 weeks. It was brutal. But every block, like I left, and this was after 4 to 6 hours of scrims to VOD review and prime goats like me, and you guys know how much I love Brig, one trick in the hero, and I was about to lose my mind. But as time went on, I kept playing.
Sam, you've got to remember, I've got a very special place in my heart for OG Brig being able to bash through shields, because what happened to the United States at the World Cup, that was a beautiful time. and we endlessly scrimmed. It was great. It was
and you probably saw way more of that than I did, so you probably have some clips on in the Overwatch folder so deep, 3 years ago, the old hard drive that would make everyone, just kind of LOL. But no, it's like, and that was the beauty of the game. And this was season 14, 15 for me. And I learned a whole new game. And getting like our ranked atmosphere, it doesn't need to be at that point. But I can only imagine when guys, we saw Dr. Disrespect come in and stream with Tim the other day, and I'm not sure who else they played with, but imagine those guys, regardless of their SR range, starting over in a clan stack, like a 5v5 in Overwatch 2, assuming they stick with 5v5. We have no clue, right? And they can just learn together. And even, heck, add a coach role and have a separate leaderboard or something. And again, splitting the player base could be a concern, sure. But I dare say that way more people would play that than what we have now. Like what we have now, we have an identity crisis right now. What are we? Are we Quick Play Plus, or are we actually ranked? And as someone who's had the chance to really, truly experience both, to me, it's a no-brainer, because we already have Quick Play. Why not allow the game to be played to its potential by your average consumer? Because I guarantee you, they'll fall in love with the game again, just as we all did. And I'm sure everybody in the chat right now did, because it really is the best game I've ever played in terms of like actual competitiveness. The problem is we just did not firmly decide on a route to go to deliver that to our audience, and they never truly got to experience it. And once we do, I think, because look, the proof's kind of in the pudding right now as to how this works. It just doesn't. So that's why I gave it a 1. I'm not sure if I answered the questions. I kind of
no, you absolutely did.
I think it was great.
What I want to bring up is on the point of what EeveeA brought up about player mentality versus the developer side of things. Because a lot of people, when you bring this topic up, will say, well, there's nothing stopping you from stacking. Okay, in GM, there's something stopping you from stacking. But for the majority of players, they'll say, well, there's nothing stopping you from stacking. So what would you say to that point? Like, you can stack. People just choose not to. So is it the people?
For it. The system punishes you for it.
You
get less SR.
I'll let EeveeA go.
Oh, my fault. I'm sorry. My fault.
No.
I think we're probably on the same page.
You go first. No, it was your question. It was your point.
It's trying to match you with another 6 stack queue times. Because as soon as you're a group, you have to have 6 people have the patience to find another group of 6 people. And as soon as you have 1 or 2 queues in a row that were long, one of the 6 is going to be like, all right, I can't handle this. And then you instantly don't have your 6 stack anymore. Poof. The system just like rolls over into itself of not having, no incentives for the six stacking.
You
Like
see
there's
this as well, Evie, with Group Finder as well. Who uses Group Finder?
That still exists.
Yeah, exactly. But even when that came out, it would just never, you'd never ever
Yeah.
fill a group. I mean, I remember sitting there thinking, I'll make a video on this group finder thing. And I'm like, yo, I'm joining groups. The groups are just falling apart instantly. I'm like, great. I'll join another one. There's just nothing happening. It's like, well, I can see that what they're trying to do, but it's just not the right way of doing it. But yeah, it's similar
Yeah.
to what you said though,
I
Evie.
think there's one key point that all of us will have a ball jumping on to talk about collectively is so a few of you might have saw when Jeff said this, but there's many aspects of the game where Jeff Kaplan himself had an idea and a vision for the game and had to compromise with the team. There's even the end, like how he remember the time we experimented with 132?
Mhm.
132, Jeff wanted that. Compromise with the team, well, didn't work out. Well, now we have 5v5 where instead of 3 DPS, we'll have 2. Well, another example of that was he wanted comp to only be 6 stacking. He wanted it to be, you would have like a 5 match placements with that group of players with maybe one extra leeway as far as that established group, and then you would have your group skill rating. And that's what he wanted for comp as a whole. But obviously the team was like, yeah, no, we need flexibility. We need the player base will need flexibility in order for it to survive. One could argue if we only had the 6 stacking at launch, would that have made quick play more lively and appealing simultaneously of making the 6v6 more competitive integrity by forcing the notion of if you want competitive, you should be in a competitive mindset with 5 other people.
Do you know what I think? This is very similar to World of Warcraft. So the group finder system in WoW, especially for raids, if you focus on raids, imagine raids is competitive in Overwatch, and it was 6 stack only. You have to have a 6 stack to go into it. So if this was a Warcraft equivalent, you'd need a full guild, a raiding guild. There's no raid finder or anything. You've got to build these groups and go ahead. The best players will do that. The problem is most of the population won't. What most of the population will do is click that join a raid button and sit there for 5 minutes and instantly get thrown into a raid. Then they get to see that content, that experience. I think it's kind of similar with Overwatch, with anyone can just, you need the solo queue because you need to be able to fill matches fast, but also with a dynamic queue system, it does give that random quick play player the chance of going, I'm going to try and play competitive. I want to be a winner. And then they go into it and then, they have the whole
The notion,
Overwatch
the feeling that
experience,
you have
so
to make
it's
5
like,
other friends,
The
right?
same
yeah. Whereas if you required the full group to begin with, it would be a massive barrier of entry to a lot of people. It wouldn't be to streamers, it wouldn't be to YouTubers or anybody like that, because
Your
great,
average
we'd all
player.
get together and make content. Because this is the issue that we've got. And honestly, I think this will be hopefully a little bit easier to do with Overwatch 2, especially with the PvE stuff, because it gives a great little sort of platform for people to get together and enjoy the game in a different way, instead of everyone being broken off into their various skill levels and not really being ever able to interact. It's always been one of the sad things for me about Overwatch. It's so difficult to make collaborative content with people outside of things like podcasts or discussion stuff, things like that.
Absolutely,
Unless
yeah.
you're the same skill level, you just can't do anything.
Now, on that point though, and I'm going to add nothing to this, I wanted to just hear the thoughts here. What if they replaced OpenQ, which is a thing in and of itself, with the 5v5 in Overwatch 2?
I think it'd be better. Who
think
plays
so?
open queue? Very few people at this point. It's I'd like that personally. And to add on kind of to what you were saying real quick before we change subjects, I think in this era of gaming as well, with the era of the streamer, we'll call it, the era of content creation, now compared to even when Overwatch came out, it's been crazy, right? It's become corporate. Is that the right word? Where you've seen hundreds of millions of dollars thrown at content creation only compared to the previous year, and what that's made happen. And you saw this with Among Us. You saw this with a lot of other games. Is wherever, like, if you create a platform for like big streamers, like for example, say XQC came back and just wanted to come play with Stack, or Tim and Doc came back and stacked, right? They would bring their own crowd and kind of lead the way of this, what we'll call swing players, which back when I used to work for Mindplex, we called players who would hop on multiple servers at once during a day and weren't hard committed to one, swing players, because they swap products all the time. They swap between game to game. They play whatever they feel like for the day. For example, I'm a swing player for Warzone. Whenever my guy friends want to play Warzone, I'll hop on and play a couple games of Rebirth with them, and then I'll obviously come back to playing Quick Play, which is very fun. But Quick Play is undersold as to how good it is right now. I really do enjoy playing Quick Play, but
I mean, Quick Play is the most played format in Overwatch, though. Like, this is, I
yeah,
think there's more
There's something
games
to
of
be said that
competitive.
we have 2 million players per month. There's something to be said. That's where they are. They're in
Yeah,
Quick Play.
exactly. I think more competitive
number?
game instances are fired up, but there's more players in Quick Play or something. But Quick Play is definitely the most popular format of the game, because that is, you actually could even argue that is the way Overwatch is meant to be played.
Yeah.
Just go in and just do crazy shit. It's like, oh, let's do anything.
Sorry,
And
EeveeA,
it's fun.
where's that stat from? Sorry.
So I think that's probably around 9 months old. I think that was a investor call when establishing the current player bases among Blizzard games at that time. I think that's
So they
around
said
how
2
old.
million active
I
monthly
think it was
users?
2 million people log in per month for Overwatch. I
Okay.
think it was that.
Okay.
So-
Well, yeah, I
so
mean,
we
that's
could
fair. I
probably
mean, it's
catch
really
up
hard to
later.
tell with those numbers what that really translates to. But certainly, I think there's no doubt that Quick Play is the format that people play. But Sam, you were about to kick off on something.
Oh yeah, I was just talking about how look, if we were to replace open queue with that kind of ladder, right? Or like just a clan queue or like anything with group SR, that just, because if anything, while the barrier of entry might be big for your average player, I do believe that there's so many players out there that would come try Overwatch to play with their friends on the flip side of that coin. And the reason why I say that is because all of my buddies who play Warzone do the same thing. Like, I'm like, hey man, like, you should come play Overwatch with us, because me and all my friends from home will hop on. They're all diamond, so I'll get on my Not Samito account, log Reinhardt and diamond, like, and just mess around, just in a stack where we'll play BAP, and I'll be like, hey, so we're setting up here to do X, Y, and Z. We'll learn, we'll try it, we'll win some, we'll lose some, but they'll leave those games much happier because they're like, well, I felt like I learned something. I felt like we tried to do something as a team. And you know what? If we come up short, that's why they can sit there and grind Warzone all day, right? That's why we can, like, I think in this era of gaming, while it might seem like the barrier to entry is high for your average consumer, like, with how popular a lot of these games have gotten, especially if Overwatch does, I think Overwatch can do crossplay better, crossplay competitive better than any other game has ever tried to do. That could be a big, big marketing point for us, especially given how successful the other side of Activision Blizzard is with Warzone, and Warzone 2 getting announced today, stuff like that. I think it's really feasible. I think actually it would draw more players in this modern era of gaming, considering the streamers that would come back and play, considering the image it would set in players' minds. Like, hey, like this is pretty sweet. And I think we would be pleasantly surprised at how many people would actually come back and give it a shot. It's better than now. Like, it's better than now. At least we can say that. But yeah, there's no way to 100% tell, but based on the way the industry's traveled, I think we'd be surprised as to how good it would be.
I'm fairly positive in many ways when it comes to Blizzard, and I defend the developers in an incredible amount in various ways, but I actually am rather cynical when it comes to crossplay.
Really?
I think crossplay was implemented at the time it was done because just too many regions and say Asia Xbox, no one could find fucking matches. But then say if you're Asia and console, then you have a much larger pool of players to be able to play. And I think crossplay was implemented at the time it was because it was showing the signs of the player base was relatively dying.
I'd counter that, and I'd say I don't think it was. I honestly think Crossplay is a system designed for Overwatch 2, and because it was ready and they needed to add content to Overwatch, anything, they were like, hey,
Oh, no,
actually, we can just plug this
think so
into the
too.
game.
No,
Oh yeah, no, I think
I
that's
think there's
probably
definitely positive aspects to why crossplay crossplay has been on the radar for years, right? But I
yeah.
think the timing was like, this needs to be the priority in order to improve the health of queues for consoles. So now all consoles are in the same queue pool, and then now you get the benefit of crossplay with PC players' capability. Like, don't get me wrong, there's benefits there, but I'm saying, like, it's one of the few times where I'm like, I think this, if we didn't get crossplay, I think people would have an even more negative view of Overwatch because of the perception of queue times has such a heavy view of, oh wow, my queue was 12 minutes, this game is dead, right? So I think that's just like, No.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that's definitely. I mean, it's just interesting because you guys are just coming in from a different POV. Style feels like it was done as just a, well, we need
Yeah, no,
content, just
I
give them
just
this.
feel, yeah. So I feel like if you just if you go, Overwatch is done and finished, right? 2 years ago it's done. 3 years ago it's done as a developer. So you're like, we're going to focus on Overwatch 2 development and we're building content for that. For whatever reason, we can't actually make content for the live game. So hopefully we can get Overwatch 2 done in a quick time frame, and then we're going to actually to kind of put a band-aid on the state of Overwatch. Anything we've made for Overwatch 2, we can plug straight into Overwatch. Let's just do it. And I think crossplay is one of those systems because it's an underlying system that's built sort of, on the
server side and not the
yeah.
client changes that have been developed.
So it's something that's always going to be there. It's kind of like why we always get deathmatch maps, because they're obviously going to be playable in Overwatch 2, right? So I don't know. But I do honestly. I mean, I agree that it does help the state of the queues as well, which we're getting quite bad. But
Yeah, but on that note, I just kind of want to bring it back to the focus of what we were kind of talking about. So whatever reason we might think it was implemented, Sam says that it would potentially boost Overwatch's competitive side, massively. Like he thinks, as he said, that it could be the best competitive crossplay out there. Is that something you guys agree with?
So you're always going to have the issue with controllers and mouse when it comes to DPS heroes. But if you put controller heroes on players on tanks, force them to play Reinhardt.
I think, Sam, do you mean crossplay with PC or crossplay amongst the consoles?
So I'm not saying it would be phenomenal. I'm saying it would be better than like every other game out there. So if you reset MMR, disabled aim assist, right? Obviously, the console players who play DPS would probably, most of them would be lower SR. There have been a few, like Hopeful. I'm not sure if you guys know him. He was rank 1 on Xbox and PC at the same time.
Damn.
He's
Okay.
incredible. Like literally probably like 44, 45 on PC with controller. Kid is gifted. Right? I haven't seen him in a bit, but this was a while ago. Like incredibly talented. Like there will be a few outliers, like a joystick now, right? But I'm saying, like, if you wanted to unify a community and have a functioning competitive platform, in the reality of, you would have to take the handicaps, or not handicaps, enablers off console, the aim assist,
training
whatever
wheels.
Yeah, yes, the assist, the help, right? I'm not sure what the proper terminology is.
I think that there's just so much depth to this specific aspect as well. Because I mean, even the example that when the crossfire that we have now, them just disabling aim assist, the obvious thing that I instantly was like, wait, so you took off aim assist off of Ana for friendly? Because console has different aim assist for enemies as Ana and friendlies as Ana. And so my instant was like, feels like the hero that needs to shoot teammates. Why don't you just at least let Ana's keep friendly aim assist, right? Stuff like that is like, it's like, you can make the argument for that, and that's a lot of quality of life. And so, is there aim assist for teammates for, targeting, or is it just no aim assist at all? It feels kind of like a little bit brutal. And I also don't agree with the, oh, what if controller players for the tank and supports, right? It's a harmful mindset fundamentally, but as well as like, I mean, okay, so Zarya, there's always going to be instant examples of like,
Yeah. I was giving like, did any of you guys play Halo? Did anyone play Halo Infinite on PC multiplayer?
Like the one that just came out.
You get flamed for playing on PC. It's dead funny. You don't have the aim assist. So you get flamed. Yeah,
come on.
Yeah,
like,
because the
no
BR. Yeah. When you like with the 3-fire burst, if you target them on console, the aim assist locks on for all 3 of the shots. On PC, it doesn't. So you like fire, and you're like obviously trying to aim at them as they're jumping about. So you're not as good. Like you are a major competitive disadvantage if you are playing on PC.
Yeah,
So,
I think
but
the
it is a
stat
console
was
shooter, so-
crazy. Like at the top, at the mean of players, and at the top 100, the accuracy stat at the top 100 for console was 65%. And for PC top 100 mouse and keyboard, it was 55%. And the mean for console players accuracy was also 55%. And the mean for PC players was 45. And with the higher time to kills in that game, every bullet counts. So that's a good point. And again, like, I'm not saying that this should happen for Overwatch.
Yeah.
I'm saying that we could do it better than anyone else due to how important positioning is, cooldown management is. Like there's so much more depth to Overwatch than just mechanics, right? Like, and
I think like with the crossplay thing though, you've obviously got like if you look at the 4 platforms, PC obviously can be independent. The 2 PlayStation and Xbox, sure, they match made in heaven. Switch is just useless because it's these guys are playing at like 12 FPS. They can't actually like, they can't do anything. It's like
you know what you could do for them?
Unplayable. What's that?
You ready for this?
Go.
Let's not pretend Overwatch Mobile won't happen at some point.
Oh no, that's happening.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
It's not.
happening.
Yeah,
Switch and mobile,
there's no
yeah.
way it won't happen. There's no.
But will
way
it be the same though as what we've got, or will it be?
I mean, more likely than not. Well, so that's kind of one of the things is like they've promised Overwatch 2 to come out on Switch, right? Which is already just a massive engineering undertaking. Holy shit! But as well as that, more than likely, Overwatch Mobile would be by a sister team and not the primary team, which would mean that either they would have to then have a fork in the road to where would Overwatch 2 on mobile be the different team, and then they would switch the, no pun intended, switch the Switch version from the primary version to a mobile version. Because as well as like the Switch is already what, 5 years old?
Yeah, and the
How old
Switch
is
is equivalent to an Xbox 360. In fact, it's less powerful. So that's it's difficult to program for that.
We probably this again, and also just to be clear, this is so late on the list
Yeah.
of problems that we have.
I want to drag us back
Great
actually at this
conversation,
point.
though. Great
It is a great
conversation.
conversation. It is actually one worth having, but I do want to be conscious that we're now quite deep down the speculation train and also quite far from where we began, which is just the idea of, I think this all started from the idea of like teaming up with your friends, right? And I think Sam spoke about Warzone and teaming up with his friends there. So I just want to round off the whole team versus solo queue debate, because it seems like you guys are all in the boat of Overwatch has to provide better team play incentives. We sort of touched on it a little bit with why people don't team right now. EeveeA said, well, the queue times are massive. Sam, I think at that time you were going to come in with more ways that you feel the game punishes stacking.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, you get less SR when you're grouped. You have longer queue times when you're grouped.
Hold up, what? SR?
Yeah, at least back in the day when you would stack, oh yeah, you would get like that's why that was the only thing that stopped. Like remember all the tier 3 teams, like the SA teams that would queue at like 2 a.m. They would queue into the East Coast guys.
Well, it wasn't
I think the SR is probably due to the likelihood of winning, right? So the matchmaker probably was like, okay, well you've taken so long, we need to give you a game, but these are solo queues, so you're likely to win.
They did know. So like they
would
account for that.
It was less that the stacking itself, but the issue that it's not facing enough stacks of equal quality.
Yeah.
If it was an equal quality stack, you would get the same for a
win
that you should.
I think plain and simple, as long as 6 stacks or like if your queue is a 6 stack and it's forcing you to look for other 6 stacks, by definition, and the ladder ranking is same versus solo queue, that's already a punishment, surely. Right? Like it's forcing you to play a tougher game for the same SR that you would get in your solo queue.
For sure.
Anything else to add on that, Sam? Sorry, I kind of...
I think that was it. Obviously, as the higher up you go, the more restrictive it is. And honestly, like after watching so like for example, as the general SR requirements where like in GM, think about this for a second. I can't queue with anybody who's not within 350 SR of me, right? Well, what's the point of that when at this point in the game, and even back in the day, I'm going to get players 750 SR lower than me anyway.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose at this point in time of having such strict restrictions, right? Because we argue that, we don't want stacking because we want players to have freedom to play. Well, then why can't I queue with my friends? If we want freedom to play, go the distance then. Like, I'd prefer that. I mean, obviously, that'd have to work in a group queue because then you have serious issues with boosting and stuff, right? But at this point, I would much rather, if I can get on my main and pull all my buddies up and they would get probably dumpstered, I wouldn't mind losing all my SR as long as I can play with my friends. It's about the core experience of the product. It's been, SR at this point is just a number, right? It's been 32 seasons. I don't care. I would have more fun teaching my friends how to play ranked, even in the coaching role. Like say, all right, each team is allowed a coach to spec if you want to do that, like only first person POV of your teammates, right? And you can even coach them and teach them along the way. Like imagine all the content we can make. Like, how fun would it be for you to get a team of bronzes for YouTube and you can spec their comp games and try to coach them out of bronze on the live server?
I mean, the fact Super quick
Well-
before that, keep in mind we can't spectate comp games. We can spectate quick play. We already have the capability.
I
to
didn't even think
spectate
of
quick-
that.
Yeah, we
Oh,
have
wow.
spectating in quick play. We just can't spectate in comp. Imagine if you could spectate comp, but you could only have the first person POV of the person you're now spectating.
That would be
Why not?
fun.
Yeah.
I would love to spec Jay and talk about how hard he's feeding. It just
Yeah,
every game.
exactly. That would enable collaborative content in a new way.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome. It'd be innovation. Like, where did it all go? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we've
Well,
just
this
left
is the big problem, right? Honestly, Overwatch has been dead for 3 years. I mean, when I say dead, okay, that's over the top.
I mean,
the
if
game
we're
isn't
honest,
dead.
it
It's-
is.
it has not
Let's
been
be
giving
real,
service.
It has been.
Mhm.
It's not there, but it is somewhere else. And I'm hoping when we start seeing that coming out, you start getting a lot of these issues being resolved, because the state of ladder, the state of the way the matchmaker works, the way SR is attributed, and all of that shite, that could be completely different for all we know. And it's never going to change in this game right now, because it's simply not worth doing it. This has always been the issue for Overwatch. It is not worth putting anything into the game right now, because if you came out and let's say there was a developer update and it's like, we are fixing competitive, wholesale sweeping changes, we're introducing a 6v6 mode, we're doing this, we're doing that, and it's fantastic, we're all loving it. Well, nobody's coming back to the game for that. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
we
no,
don't
completely
care. The
right.
audience is gone.
Completely right.
I mean, if
What
we
they've
use
got. Sorry, Evie, go.
if we use the developers' terminology, the heart hasn't been beating. That's what it's been happening. The heart has
Exactly,
not
yeah.
been beating in Overwatch for like 2.5 years. And like,
Yeah.
it's not these small changes. And let's be honest, the devs were kind of on fire there for like, what was it, like 9 months for the balance patches like once a month. Like it was a good bit there. But then like once my speculation, once the developers were like, all right, well, we can't focus, like before that BlizzCon event, all right, well, we've been focusing so much on PvE, the players only care about seeing something new announced for PvP. So that's when like they probably were like, all right, final decision, let's make 5v5 happen. I typically don't like the reactionary views that typical players have, but it's the one time I agree with them where it's like, if it wasn't a reactionary 5v5 change, then we would have had tank changes accordingly to 5v5. The only changes that we had was yoinked a tank out and the role changes, the role passives, right? The role passives and taking a tank out is like, development-wise, decision-making, probably only 2 fucking weeks. Like, coming up with the role passives, that only took probably a few weeks to come up with.
I don't like the thing that keeps grating on me is you look at the change to 5v5. They have to rework every single hero, and
Yes,
we've seen
yes,
how much
absolutely.
effort goes into just one hero rework. Look at when Symmetra was. I remember when Symmetra was originally reworked and she had the projected barrier. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean,
that-
Symmetra's had 3 reworks, right?
yeah, but
He's probably
even
one
the
of
amount of
the-
work to go into one,
Yeah.
when you just put that to the whole roster, and then you go, here's a bunch of new heroes, and by the way, it's 5v5. You are literally saying to the dev team, there's 2 years of work. And they're like, okay, so that's a lot of like, and it also means, oh wait, we can't do anything with the live game because it's 6v6.
Yeah, exactly. balance
And we
changes
can't
came
change it to
early,
5v5
yep. Mhm.
because
So do you-
we've only done 5 reworks. I mean, we've seen even when the PV that terrible PvP stream I was on, and they were like, hey, this is 5v5, woo! And I'm like, right, so we're gonna see all the reworks. Oh, no, they're not finished. We've only got 11 heroes reworked at this point.
It's a
And I'm like,
huge ask for the balance team. Who like?
oh god, yeah, it's years
look,
of
which is
work.
the balance
I'm
team
on them.
difference
I'm
with
on their
people.
case more than most people, and even I can acknowledge like that is not fair to them at all.
How do you bounce between the 2 games as well? Like you've
It's
literally
hard.
got 2
You have to
completely
have
different
like
games.
huge
Well,
brain, like
what
huge
makes
attention
it-
span, huge
You just
brain.
let creators do it.
Yeah,
What makes it
yeah.
even
No,
madder
seriously.
is, like,
Yeah.
What makes
So-
it even tougher is the situation where when you have the I think one of the biggest issues in Overwatch is just the fucking hell that is the public perception of what the fuck is Overwatch 2. If you ask any person what Overwatch 2 is, you will get an individual unique answer every single fucking time. Because players don't understand. Because frankly, half of it, the developers are still not understanding, but even the basics that we have established of the Overwatch 1 client is going to poof, and the Overwatch 2 client will exist. Even that basic piece of information that we had confirmed in 2019, 95% of players that know of Overwatch 2's existence don't know about that aspect. And so that fundamental aspect, when you get down to it, stretches out to, people don't understand what the 5v5 changes, and so the perception is, well, 5v5 looks shit, what we've seen. Well, yeah, no shit, it looks like shit because none of the changes to make 5v5 work were implemented. The reason, like, in order to make 5v5 work, you need all those changes. You need the reworks. You need tanks to be tanks especially reworks across the board. I don't necessarily think DPSs need to get reworked across the board. Probably some ability tweaks to make more sense in a one tank environment. You know, despite what we'd like to think, unfortunately, some DPS abilities are fundamentally designed around anti-tank, right? That mindset of getting value versus a squishy versus a tank are designed into DPS abilities, right? You know, Echo's doubling of her beam below half health, for example. If you have one tank, is that ability less valuable? Is it an execution ability and it still has, you know, those kinds of questions are all things that need to be re-asked. But in the situation where the player's perception is this all looks shit, you didn't do anything to this. And it's kind of like as much as I always love defending the devs, in this case, they're right. Nothing has been changed to make 5v5 work. And I think ult economy is a huge aspect where, like, so tanks are giving less ult charge because they're a tank. And then you take away one tank, and then you haven't tweaked how fast people get ults. Are we getting one ult per round now? Is that fun? Should we tweak the ult's value? Should we make it to where ults come up every like 45 seconds again, like in the season 1, but they're less powerful? You know, the tempo feels completely different. And so we get into the aspect where, like, competitive integrity comes down to, is the game fun to take it seriously? And at this point, I would say the game is not fun to take it seriously.
Yeah, I just want to summarize there, because I think we've had, and I guess even add to that is what you're saying is it's not fun to take it seriously because in a way the devs haven't taken it seriously, right? That's kind of the theme and summary of what I'm getting here, is that you guys are saying, well, look, it started when they stopped developing Overwatch 1 properly. They announced Overwatch 2, then they announced Overwatch 2 5v5, but that felt knee-jerk. That felt like, oh shit, we got to give people something to say. We threw it out. We grabbed Stylosa and Cupcake and Super and said, guys, be excited on this PvP stream.
I'll give you a bit of behind the scenes about that. So it was literally 2 days before the whole thing was going down. Hey, it's very close. Do you want to jump on a stream? We're going to show off PvP changes. 5v5. I was like, 5v5? I'm like, okay. What do you want me to do? They're like, there's going to be, I think it was Aaron, and it may have been Jeff Goodman, I think, in that section. I'm not sure, but it was definitely Aaron Keller. They're going to be on, and you're going to be able to ask some questions about it. So I'm like, nice one. But actually, what it was is I get to sit there as the influencer, and they just get to read off their bullet points about what's going on. And I'm like, this is a bit awkward. And I'm like, what am I doing here? But I think, like, the wider issue with that is there is pressure on them to show that they're doing something, because obviously, everybody, all the players, all the community, the content creators, everyone, what are you doing with this game? Why is the game got no content? What's going on with Overwatch 2? It's been years since 2019. Show us something. And you remember they showed us that little bit at BlizzCon Online with the PvE stuff. They had the talents and things like that, like talent trees and stuff like that. They showed us. And then they give us this, what honestly they probably thought was a big meaty update to, hey, this is what's going on with PvP. And we get to kind of see the sort of direction they're going with 5v5. And you can see they did try to do some things, like when they showed games on Dorado. They're trying to say, look, guys, this is the way 5v5 will function on maps that you guys already played. But like you said, Evie, the problem is they've only got 30% of the hero reworks done, or they've got heroes that are outright disabled. And there are new heroes that we don't even know about that obviously they must be planning around balance with whatever the new heroes do and all of that stuff. So it's really complex. And so what they end up showing us looks like Overwatch. And then I think that there was a pretty popular XQC quote where he was like, it just looks the same. It does look the same. It does look the same. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's Overwatch. And, this is something I think this is, I'll be honest with you guys, I get really worried about Overwatch 2 and the impact it'll have when it eventually comes out, because it's not Overwatch 1 when it launched. It's not this brand new IP. Everyone knows what the majority of the cast are. They know what they do. They know what the game is. So you don't have that, like, meteor impact of like, bang, this is a new game. It's like, here's Overwatch 2.0. And so everyone is like, well, I'll stop playing this game in 2018. Why should I come back and play it? It looks the same. Yeah. And that's a massive problem they've got.
That's why I want to do a BR. Seriously. I seriously think that we could have the best be on the market. Can we do it now? No, there's too much on the plate.
Well, I mean,
but
I can't
Well,
deny
what I'd
a
add to
hero
that is
BR
what
would be
we've
fucking
just
cool.
complained about is that essentially the devs took, hopefully I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, but if I can summarize what I've heard from you guys, essentially the devs took a sort of relatively quick decision to go 5v5, and that has caused such massive implications in terms of the balance that we haven't really even dealt with that ramification, right?
Okay,
And
I don't agree with that. No,
So
I
no,
don't
I
think
think
it was a quick decision.
yeah,
Go
no,
on,
I don't
Evie,
think it was
go.
a quick decision
No.
either. No, so I think it was more of the timing relative to the announcement.
Right,
Yeah,
was the
made it
quick
look
decision.
quick. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yes. I don't think 5v5
think,
was a rush decision
right.
yeah,
individually.
I think this is even. Look at Overwatch League. Overwatch League is unwatchable in 6v6. It's not to us because we know what's going on, but to general population, you watch Counter Strike, you watch Overwatch League, you have got no idea what's going on. So you reduce the number of players, becomes a lot more readable straight away.
Yes, absolutely.
You might have noticed as well, the maps are larger in Overwatch 2. Look at the size of the New York map. The spaces are much bigger. Just the play areas around the points.
Really? No, I
That's to
disagree
make
with
it.
the opposite. What?
Well, I would say the
I
fire
was
engine. But I think what the
no.
point I'm trying to make is they're trying to build maps that are there's less going on, so it makes it easier to focus on action when it starts happening and makes it a bit more readable.
I would say that Overwatch 2 maps are more centralized in section to section of the map. The large scale of the map, walking through it, yes, they're larger, but the actual geometry of the map is encouraging more centralized engagements. However, while incentivizing the mobility aspects of Overwatch, whereas, going over building or, playing around these corners are more pertinent because of the lack of tank, where
Yeah.
the developers are focusing on more cover, a lot more cover in Overwatch 2 maps. In fact, that was one of the aspects of we might be getting more cover added to Overwatch 1 maps to count for the less
Yeah.
cover provided by one lacking tank.
But the tank as well, the off tank is also another issue. It is difficult for people to see what that is actually doing.
Yeah.
And often it will be doing a ton of damage or it'll be doing something else like, D.Va messing around with defense matrix. And it's very difficult to show what's going on when you've got that additional tank, I think. So 5v5 does cure a lot of those things. So I like to sort of bring it back to what my original point was. I think this was a decision that was made quite a few years ago, maybe even before we even got Overwatch announced to us in
I think
2019.
the decision was, I mean, remember when we had the 1-3-2? I think that was their
Yeah.
decision of we need to shake up
Mm.
and change the actual composition of teams fundamentally. And I think that was the straw of like, well, so we can't make this work in Overwatch 1. This change has to be an Overwatch 2 change because it's going to be so fundamental to remove a player from the team. Whereas if it was still 6v6, I think we could have had that change earlier in Overwatch 1.
Yeah.
I think that's what could have happened. So I
And
think
Yeah.
once they realized that the 1-3-2 couldn't happen in Overwatch 1, it shifts over to, right, well, 5v5 in Overwatch 2 to make this work. And so that's why I think the decision was made then, but the development of that 5v5 hadn't started happening yet because so much of it is focused on the PvP development. And when you think, all right, well, the release is like, 2 years away, why would we work on the PvP changes when we're still working on the live servers? The PvP changes need to be the right before it goes out the door to be up to date with the current ecosystem of the Overwatch 1 ecosystem. Because if you're making ecosystem changes to Overwatch 2 while in development, and you still think the development is going to be like 2 years away, well, you're going to be in a different balancing mindset of you're balancing two different games at the same time if you're working on PvP changes so early ahead of time. So that's why they were working on PvE and the core mechanics around the PvE system of leveling up your hero, new swapping out abilities of your hero, different functionalities. That kind of fundamental functionality is what they've been working on for so long that once it became the BlizzCon, that was why it was rushed. Because not the decision to go 5v5, but all right, now we actually have to make the developmental changes to make the 5v5 viewable to the average player. But we hadn't
Right.
done the actual balance because that wasn't the focus at the time. And so,
Yeah, and that, go ahead.
yeah. No. That's pretty much it.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. Sorry that I misrepresented that. Yeah, and so that makes a lot of sense. And in a way, we've kind of acknowledged that it is a huge ask for any developer to balance all that and obviously have these two minds where on the one hand, I've got this 5v5 roster and on one hand, I've got the 66 roster. I want to take it to Sam because we've seen some changes, not a lot of changes recently in terms of balance. But a lot of people are concerned, even with all that given, and they say, okay, well, we're giving the devs slack because they're developing a different game, but they're adding stuff like Cassidy roll or the Junkrat hit fall off changes that they made. A lot of people looked at that, and I've seen people say, well, if that's what they're doing for Overwatch 2, well, the game's in the shitter. How do you feel about that? Hey guys, SVB here. Just going to quickly interrupt this episode of the Group Up podcast to say that if you're enjoying this content, then please do consider signing up for my Patreon to support me directly. It's really amazing because it allows me to keep making content like this carefree, regardless of how many views Overwatch does or doesn't get. I know no one likes sellout ads, but chances are if you've listened until this far in, then you're at least somewhat enjoying the content. So please do consider at least leaving a like, subscribe, and a comment underneath the video on YouTube. It really does help. But that's it from me. Now back to the discussion.
You know, I'm still not on, like, I still don't think that a lot of these changes are being made for Overwatch 2. At least not all of them.
No.
I'm not sold on it. Like, it could be true, but like, I kind of just tuning it out, just because right now we're in 6v6. We should be balancing for 6v6. Period. I don't really know what to take of that. It's tough. To be honest, man, like if I was to try to
Sam,
understand...
I think right now, if you're the development team for Overwatch and you've got a junior developer that needs to learn balance, you put them on Overwatch and let them balance the game, and then they get immediate live feedback, and then the senior dev can sit there and go, "Well, that's why you shouldn't have made that change." That's what you do with Overwatch. That's literally it. That's probably what they've been doing. Honestly,
And maybe that's what they're doing with the
did it.
experimental as well.
I
Just like
think-
letting us be the guinea pigs.
I think...
that also makes us make content on it because we've made the changes as well, so it's clever all round.
Yeah.
That's true.
Save
Go
some
ahead,
time
Sam.
and
Go ahead,
energy.
Sam. Go ahead.
Didn't we
It's-
get in addition to the balance team? I can't remember his name, but we've seen him. Us creators have seen him. I can't remember his name, but I mean, it's basically been all these years. Jeff Goodman has been the lead balancer, hero designer from the ground up, and maintainer of the balance of these heroes. And I think only until just in these past like year or so do we have a new person also involved in these balances.
I think EeveeA, it's been Jeff and Josh No have been the balance
right,
team,
yes,
but for a
yes.
while, for quite a few years, I think.
I think
Sam,
that
sorry, I'm
maybe-
just curious. I'm just conscious that Sam was starting something, and I haven't let him speak too much. So go ahead,
no,
Sam.
you're good. I'm chilling.
You were saying, I think.
Oh no, I think Sty's right. Look, man. You guys know my opinion on how game balance has been over the last few years. I think that from the top down, from the top's philosophy on the game, and Jeff Kaplan said this, their goal was to make a complicated game and continue to add things to make it much easier, right? And for more players to have access to it. I think the way that we did it was not great. And at this point, when they have Overwatch going on, Kaplan's gone now, they might just be saying, all right, intern, get in there. Like, like it's very possible. I believe it because at this point, look, if us as content creators are saying, yeah, look, Overwatch 1 probably not, I hate to say not salvageable, but let's be real here, right? The only reason that people would come back to play this game or even like think about it, well, when's Overwatch 2 coming out? My buddies ask me all the time, they go, Sam, when's Overwatch 2 coming out? I go, guys, I'm on an NDA. Even if I did know, I still couldn't tell you. Like, no one knows. And let them take their time. Let them focus on that, right? Like, it makes me sad, but at this point, like, it might as well. What's the show? Oh my God, help me out. Bunch of money on a wheel. You spin it.
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune, but with hero changes on it. That's like
It's a wheel. Is a fortune attached to it? What's the name, guys?
Probably not a fortune, just a lot of pain. But we're landing on one of them. But nah, it's. I think at this point the ship sailed. It's all kind of just silly. It's silly,
Well,
we call it.
There's one thing I want to bring up, which were alluded to. This is a tough game to balance, right? This is a really tough game to balance.
100%.
And I don't think people
play as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times we forget that sometimes. I think the creator card is a good example of this, where a lot of people are very upset. But from the side of the creators, they didn't even get to play test their own changes, right? They just threw a patch out and it was put in, and it's very difficult to make those decisions
to get it right. And to me, actually, I probably should mention that more and more in my game balance rants. But the idea and concept as to the degree of difficulty of game balance for Overwatch is what made me fall in love with it. Like, I love that challenge. It's so much fun to see, like, you have like the board in front of you and you can see if you pull here or pull a string here or you put a piece there, it affects pieces up here, and like it's a crazy chain reaction. And to be fair to Blizzard, that is not easy to do. So whenever you have like your average, I hate for lack of a better word, average Joe out there on the forums yelling about game balance, or you see all the time, be like Bastion's overpowered or Bastion, whatever it may be, right? It's just like, really, we're gonna do that? We're gonna have this conversation, like, you know what I'm saying? So I really do feel like a lot of times they get a bad rap that they shouldn't get. However, there's a lot more times where, you know, Brig's been nerfed 19 times and she was still meta now.
Yeah,
I
Right.
mean, Mercy went through 23 nerfs in a row.
23?
Yeah. I mean, and here's the funniest thing: since 2.0, Mercy has had, I think.
Oh, like original Valk?
Okay, since
yeah.
since Valk, she has had about 26 nerfs and about 4 buffs.
Well, you
So-
want to know what it is, real quick, SVB? I
No,
think
go.
the one thing that we've struggled with in balance, and I've said this for 4 years, and this is why Brig will still be very good in Overwatch 2 at high level play, and changing shield bash changes nothing. We are really hesitant to nerf the core fundamentals of what causes heroes to dominate. For example, the ability to like res multiple times in a fight. How many nerfs did it take for that to get changed? Like with Valk and stuff. Because I remember they changed
9?
like how
So,
the
like,
cast time, right? Like, it wasn't
the
instant.
cast time took probably 11 nerfs before cast time happened, because basically you could res, Valk to get a res, and then 10 seconds later res, and 10 seconds later res. So within about a 21-second period of time, you could res 4 people.
See, and that is what was made it so OP, right? If you only had one res and it was an instant cast time,
Yep.
it would be annoying, but it wouldn't be hard meta in the Overwatch League, right? The same with Brig. If we did Violet's change, where she couldn't stack all the healing at once, you know, as well as tank and peel at the same time, which no other support can really do, you'd see big. And I know that because I scrimmed her for hours, and that's why I've been on the Brig train for so long. Because like once I saw what she could truly do after playing Genji, after playing Hanzo, after playing, you know, all the heroes, Zarya is my most play. I love Zarya, and playing even Ana too. I loved all those heroes. After playing Brig at that level, and realizing, yo, I'm playing 3 roles at once right now, boy. I remember there's a clip of me, and I'll have to find it. In my team, I'm like,
Send it
boys,
my way.
I'm playing 3 roles at once. My whole team starts laughing and then after that moment, we didn't lose a map until trials.
Imagine having a top salary DPS player in the form of Prophet and forcing him to, well, not forcing him, telling him he needs to play Brig
That's a
for
heartbreaker, man.
18
That's
months.
such a
And he's
heartbreaker.
like,
Does this speak to like a deeper core issue though that we kind of alluded to? I can't remember who it was who mentioned it, but someone said we are having an identity crisis. Like we don't really know what Overwatch is, and that's doubly true with Overwatch 2. But with our balance, and again bringing it to the scope of competitive integrity, how it feels to play the game, how it feels when a hero is justifiably rewarding the input you're putting in, is a lot of this come down to the fact that we really haven't figured out, and this is something we talk about in the Group Up podcast a lot. What does a game of Overwatch roughly look like? Because we know what a game of Valorant roughly looks like. We know what a game of League of Legends roughly looks like. Do we just not know what a game of Overwatch roughly looks or should look like, and thus we keep bouncing around from idea to idea?
It's pop-off potential straight away. Valorant, you can kill the whole team. Look at this. Amazing play. Esports level, holy shit. Casters are loving it. Player becomes an instant icon. Amazing stuff. In Overwatch, you can't do that right now. But in Overwatch 2, with 5v5, you can. Like, to go back to the thing about the maps as well, Evie. New York, somewhere on the map, under a bridge, I think it was. There's a ton of flank routes. Now, these are very obviously designed. I think so. Let's say your tracer starts to flank. You can immediately pick that up as the observers will pick that up straight away. Look, that tracer's flanking. It's going into the back line. We jump on board with that tracer. Is it going to pop off? It's going to go and try and take on the 2 supports or whatever in the back line. And conversely as well, you look at the single tank, buffing the tanks, making them do more damage on their own, making them have pop off and play potential, changing their skills to allow them to do this as well, means that you can watch the tanks now going in instead of just seeing them as, well, I mean,
I
if you
mean,
really distill this down to a base level, if you watch Overwatch League and you watch a tank player, I don't know, let's take Super, for example. You watch him playing Reinhardt. Most of the time, no offense to Super, he's a fantastic player, but most of the time, what is he actually doing that looks
exactly.
impressive? That
Yeah.
on a team level, okay, great, he's taking space, he's setting up plays, he's doing whatever, he's communicating. But you don't see any of that. You just see him walking forward with his shield. Great. And then maybe he just dies. He instantly dies. But he dies, and then his team win that fight because of what he's just done. They can
Yeah.
never really get that. That could never really be communicated across. But for Overwatch 2, if you're just making the tank straight up aggro anyway, it makes it more. It's kind of easier to see what's going on
Is
at the
this
pro
and
level
that?
for
You
the
can
other.
see what's
Yeah.
happening. Is this and that versus I
Yeah.
have to do
Yeah.
this 25 seconds ahead of time, so this person is drawing aggro, and then
Yeah.
the other player can position. Where it's like I think the core and like because your point is exactly right, but to simplify for a lot of people who are listening who don't know those kinds of nuances, it's basically instead of watching a support who's healing somebody who's getting chip damage, a DPS who's shooting shields, and the tank that's holding shield, you basically have three people that are not interacting with health pools.
Yeah.
You're not actually
Yeah.
doing things to the other characters. You are
Which
doing things
Sam,
to
you,
abilities.
you said about Dr. Disrespect in that playing Overwatch. A few years ago, I made an overanalyzed video of Dr. Disrespect playing Overwatch because I thought this is going to be funny as hell. And it was. And he is just endlessly complaining, why am I shooting shields? I'm just shooting I'm shooting no one.
Yep,
This is shit.
yep.
And it's like, yes, it is bad because you've just come from Warzone or whatever, or
Yeah.
Apex. You're killing people. You're actually damaging them. You're getting a result. Here, I'm just sitting there firing into a barrier. And I don't understand actually how that barrier is now recharged. And I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. It's a huge problem. But this is less of a problem in 5v5 because you got less barriers.
True.
So
Right. And I really want to emphasize, thank you so much for saying that. Were you talking about the identity of Overwatch with pop off moments?
yeah, we don't get that in Overwatch.
Yeah,
The only pop off
you used
moments
to.
you get, Sam,
Well,
is
I think
Genji Blade was the OG one. That was the OG one. Everybody
Yeah, it
suddenly
was.
became great. So there's a video I made. This is years ago. It was Linksa, and he was playing Genji, and it's like the best Genji in the world. Okay, a bit of clickbait there, but it was like it's just blade after blade
was
killing everyone. It's
awesome.
like holy, yeah, it looks awesome. Everyone wants to be the ninja. I can't believe this. It's amazing.
I have a huge, very fucking strong point on this. The play potential has dropped dramatically, not only between having more shields in the game, but ult charges being, if you miss an ult, you have 2 minutes of the next match where everybody's like, well, we can't combo an ult, so guess we need to get our ult again.
Yeah.
To where, like, missing ults is so punishing if they don't come up online as often as they should, and they come up online even... They not only has the entire roster has had ult charge nerfs, but also you're not getting as much ult charge because of barriers. So it's a consecutive where before. So funny anecdote of how back in what was it season 2 for triple tank, the OG triple tank, right, where you had like Ryan, Zarya, Roadhog, and your DPS was maybe Soldier, and you had Ana and Lucio, right, or like Ana and
Or
Zen.
Diva sometimes in there, so it's
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Regardless, it was usually 3 tanks on a soldier. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was the one breaking that meta of being the true one-trick mercy at the time of being like, no, play Ana. And they're like, oh, no, we need this and this, we need this speeder. It's like, no, play Ana, trust me. And then with a nade, I would be healing up a tank and I would get a team res every 12.5 seconds. If I'm healing a tank that's naded, I would get a full team res in 12 seconds. And so like that kind of stuff of like,
Thank
that
God I
really
never played
puts-
against you. I would have lost my
right? And like at the time I was championing tempo resing. You know, there was never
which is the meta, by the way. Good call.
Yeah. It was never a time where we were down, right? So that kind of mindset where like snowballing, not only incentivizing the good playing, incentivizing the snowballing of your ultimates, but in a situation where your ult takes 2 fucking minutes to charge unless you're always dealing damage, like, you know, maybe they're not running like if we're talking ladder, if they're not running shields, hey, the lobby can have fun.
Real quick
Yeah.
though, I want to add on to this because this is really important. You're right. You're completely right, but I think you're blaming the wrong thing. So like, when you look at original double shield, ult charges are less through nerfs, but the barriers in all of these cases were never the problem. It was the fact that these heroes had barriers, but they also had the best sustain abilities behind those barriers in the game.
True. Very true.
So it was always fortify, grasp, drone, brig.
Nullifying
to
damage.
tie this to Stylosa's point.
Yeah.
Slowing the game down and denying pop-off moments, which
Yep,
is what
exactly.
made Overwatch the most fun game to play. And I thank you so much for saying that, Sty, because I am so bad with words, and I like try to find ways to explain this, and Frito always has to translate for me because I'm just not smart enough to do it. But
Give yourself
we've
some more credit,
added-
Sam. I got to interrupt you there. You're a very smart guy, very eloquent. Give yourself
I
some credit.
can't put it into words. I struggle with it every day. It's not my forte, right? It's just not. But like the things that we've added to the game, like for example, barrier. Because why was Reinhardt not broken? He's got a shield. What, a finite shield that
Well, he
he
has-
has to use properly to get value, and if he doesn't, you're blowing him up. Sigma.
And he has to drop it to do anything.
And he has to
Exactly,
drop
that-
it to do
that
anything. Sigma.
dropping was the huge, like the
Sigma-
fact that we have tanks that can drop, or the fact that we have tanks that had to choose between barrier or doing damage,
Mm-hmm.
whereas now we have the tanks that can do barrier and damage,
Not just
incentivizes
tanks.
those. Oh, that's-
Supports, peel,
Yeah.
and support. And where does that tie to? The old school Kaplan Goodman design model that I've been saying is the problem for years. And like it denies pop-off moments, especially for like the original cast, who, as Frito said, oh my God, the piece of the puzzle. I'm like that one guy from he's got the board
Sunny
in like
in Philadelphia.
Springs-
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And to tie with what Frito said, like, oh my God, I lost my train of thought. No! Oh my God.
Pop
What
off
was I
potential.
pop-off moments.
Shields, not shielding.
The
versus
healers
damage.
as
You
well
got
as
this, you
having
got this.
shields.
Oh,
and
the longer the fight goes, thank you. The longer the fight goes, I really need the help there. The longer the fight goes on, that's when you see a lot of these AoE healers or Sigmas or whatever, they shine more later in the fight because their downtime is so little because they're doing all of those things at once that Zarya couldn't do, Ryan couldn't do. And like just as a player, maybe not at the skill ceiling of the game, but in competitive, you notice it and you feel it, but you can't quite put your finger on it a lot of the time until you really have to analyze it. And if we want that kind of ult cycle coming, those pop-off moments come back, which is what, and I saw Tim talking about this to Doc, and when they were streaming a couple weeks ago, where he was like, Doc is the best feeling in the world. Doc goes on high ground, Hanamura, high noon, boom, 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 3 kills, and they both go, oh, like that's Overwatch. And if you look back at the original days, like that's the exact thing. That's why I still play the game. Like today, I had so much, well, it was tough. I've been doing, instead of comp, I've been playing my bronze viewers as superheroes. So I played Super Doomfist with reduced cooldowns and healing, and I try to win. It went to map 5, 99-99, and I won by 1 team fight against a bunch of bronzes, and I was sweating. My arm was sore. Like my nose started bleeding like an hour later playing Minecraft. My brain was probably
Get a
like,
fucking humidifier.
you gotta turn my shower on with the steam. We're how we do it in Kentucky. We don't have humidifiers, all right? We actually do. I'm just kidding, but I'm lazy. Regardless, that's the point. And I feel like a lot of these things, like Overwatch can create its identity again if they tie in the things and the common, reoccurring themes that we all have kind of talked about, because they all kind of tie together. And if they put a little bow on it, wrap it up like a Christmas gift, and give it to the consumer in the way that we always knew and loved it, like it will be game of the year again. It'll be comeback game because it is unmatched. No one's touched it yet. No one has. We just gotta wait for our time. I do think it'll come. I do. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I just went on a
Sty,
rant.
do
I'm
you
like,
agree
More to
with-
add,
I'm
but if
sorry.
anybody wants
Yeah,
to go first.
Oh yeah, sorry, EeveeA or Sty, either you.
Go, Evie, go.
I mean, so I want to keep hammering home about the ult charges because, like, I think the slow progression of less ultimates online as often is, I feel like, was one of those slow insidious deaths, along with many other things, of where, think of, like, again, in Season 1, if somebody uses their ult and they didn't get value, it was like, I'll get it maybe at the end of next fight, to where you might finish off that next fight with that ult. But instead, you have the situation where it might take you 2 or 3 dry fights to get an ult that you needed to get that momentum, where it might not be a support ult, where it's pretty easy to try and farm a support ult, right? But a damage ult, your Genji might be on the struggle bus for the next 2 minutes trying to get that blade, where instead, like, if you have those ults that are coming online on average, especially with the, I don't think we should be reducing tank ult distribution, but that's a different story. But like just the fact that like ultimate should be capable of coming online at a regular pace, whereas I feel like right now it's so sluggish. You don't get enough value individually. You don't get enough value, that potential to get those pick moments as much. And then the ult that's supposed to make you to have that initial burst value is coming up online even less often. Whereas I feel like that the like minute to minute, I think like on average most characters should have an ult every like nearly 50 seconds ish. Like if you're doing well consistently, you're getting value from the rest of your kit, you should be getting an ult within every minute. But instead we have situations.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to. This is a great point. I just want to give you the chance to preempt criticism because there's a lot of people who say, actually, I think Overwatch should be less around the ults because I think the mid fight is what should be prioritized and the character's kit vanilla. But do you feel like it should be more almost MOBA-esque where it's like, okay, well, in this much time, here it comes?
So it should. I think it should never be time based. It should be what you're doing. But the fact that it takes so much longer, like for example. Let's just straight up discuss the tracer experimental change, right? It incentivizes the keeping the flow going. The people who are talking about the tracer changes are like, it keeps you engaged. It always keeps you being like, I can finish off this target. It keeps you that flow going rather than all right, well, in 30 seconds towards the end of next fight, maybe in a grav, I might be able to combo, and then I'll have to wait another fight or two to get my next pulse. Instead, it's continuously snowballing, less effective, but still value burst ultimates. I think if we nerfed every ult in the game, but made them come online every 45 seconds, the game would be more fun. And finding ways to get that value, to utilize that lesser value, but still the meaningful burst of value, will encourage the constant engagement with the game. But instead, it's again like as a Mercy player, it's so much fucking value to damage boost the people who don't have their ult, more so than it's ever been, because people need to get, like, if I see my Orisa has 70% on bongo, we might get rolled if she doesn't get that bongo by the 15 seconds into the fight. If she doesn't get bongo, we're gonna get rolled. But if I damage boost the Orisa, now we have the bongo and then we just instantly roll them. So just the fact that Mercy is the only character that can bend the ult economy in that way is so important to indicate how pivotal the ult economy is in its current state, to where if you don't have the ult and they happen to have, they might have gotten 15% more chip damage than you, now they have their ult to initiate in comparison. It's putting so much more effort on if ult yes equal win fight, is that a fucking fun game or not? Is that individual skill, or is that you had more ult charge? And obviously you can say, how did you get to the more ult charge? But the point being is putting so much value on whether or not you get a good ult off, is that incentivizing skillful gameplay.
Very well put point. Sty,
And
do you
Mercy
agree with
players
that?
take notes. That was a big brain.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
like,
again. I
so-
think it just spoke a lot about your own insight into the game, EeveeA. So thank you.
I think so we know they're pushing the game more into a hit scan, well, an FPS more of a mode than a MOBA, not hit scan, more FPS, let's say. They've been saying that for a while. When we start looking at what they've showed us for Overwatch 2, because basically all I do these days, guys, is look at Overwatch 2 footage, because it's the only footage that I've got to put in videos when I'm talking about Overwatch 2. It's the same like five bloody games over and over again.
Sty knows, like, oh, in 5 seconds that guy's gonna walk up the stairs right now. Sty's ready.
Yeah. But somebody said to me, "Oh my god, can't you get any new Overwatch 2 footage?" I'm like, I really wish.
You got any, bro? You got any
You
for
and
me?
me, bro. You and me, bro. We're in the same boat.
But the point I'm making is, you look at the change to 5v5. You look at them pushing it more into an FPS-y kind of area. You would say that's putting more emphasis on the fights in between ultimate usage to give you the chance to do things without the ultimate. The ultimate's the cherry on the top. It bridges the skill gap. It bridges the. I'm Trace. I'm going to take a 1v1 with Zen, but I've got pulse bomb. I'm just gonna pulse bomb him. Okay, it's bridged the gap. I don't have to one clip him before he kills me or whatever, or the support comes in to help him. Maybe that's the way they're pushing it. It's really difficult. Like I agree with what you said, to be honest, Evie. But the issue I've always got talking about Overwatch, and it's been like this for years, is I just think we literally cannot relate to the game. The game is not the game we're playing. It's the game that has been developed for years and years. And until we can play that, we have no idea what's going on. We have no idea what direction they're going to push the game in. And we also have no idea if it's actually going to feel better or worse. It's so difficult to relate to what the developers talk about.
And I want to quickly add, because I think this kind of ties together some of the points you've already made, which is that for some heroes, it's actually much harder to build their ult than others because of barriers, right? And you alluded to, EeveeA, that like actually farming a support ult can be fairly easy. You just ask people to take some chip damage,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
heal them up, and then you go.
Especially with AoE healers too.
Exactly. Whereas what we're trying to say is we want a game where people feel.
Okay,
Because
well,
what
let
I
me
was
stop you
going to
there,
say is,
Evie.
go ahead,
Let me
Stylosa.
stop you there. So, Evie, telling your tanks to take chip damage, it's great, but how is that actually communicated to the player in the game? Unless it's you going, drop your barrier, take damage, or the tank
What
just
do you mean
knows to do
communicated?
it.
Like, how does he know to do it? It's like how
Yes.
should your average player
I
know
mean,
that you
They
want them
don't.
to take
Yeah.
damage?
Yeah.
So to them, it's I
I
keep
mean,
my barrier
that's,
up all
I mean,
the time.
that's even for example of Ball, please stop fucking grabbing the Mega when I'm Ana and I'm right next to you. Like that's
Yeah.
that's 20% of my ult you just went poof that I could have had. You know, that kind of shit is just like, that's kind of just game knowledge and being aware of your teammates
Player
and
skill.
being capable of understanding of like, the tank is like, yeah, we need nano for this fight. I should take damage. That's part of their skill, is knowing and being aware of what their team needs to be having to be capable of winning the next fight. Right? Even just like the fact that I know that, hey, you know, my Hans is probably going to be doing more chip damage than, say, my Cassidy. So I'm going to be damage boosting my Hanzo because I need the more ult charge, rather than I'm not going to be doing healing. Because if my tank's not going to be taking the damage from the healing, I need to be helping somebody else deal more damage. So because Mercy is the only character in the game where ult charge is created. Because what happens is it's not just damage boosting to then they do more damage and they get ult charge proportionate to their additional damage that they've dealt. Mercy gets the, say if I damage boost somebody and they do 30 more damage, I get the ult charge as if I just did 30 damage. That's what's happening. And so that is doubling via damage boosting. That is doubling that ult charge across two people, right? And so that's a situation where like it causes. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I've lost the plot a little bit, but it's it's a situation where it's so heavily incentivizes the individual to do what they can, but often people lose track of keeping in mind what they can do by helping somebody else do more on their side because of how individualistic the playstyle is.
I think Evie, you went into a lot of detail there, but like I was kind of like thinking, I don't know, use Valorant as an example. When is it ever a good time to take damage in Valorant? Explain that to me. Or CS:GO. When is it a good
But
time
there's
to
no
take damage?
incentive because you don't get value from the healing. There is no reason to
Yeah.
take the damage, right?
Yeah. There
It's
isn't a reason.
counterintuitive what Sty is getting at, right?
Yeah, this is the thing. So it doesn't feel great as well to take the damage, right? So
Okay, yeah, fair.
as a tank player, like obviously, high level players do know, let's charge the support ultimates and whatnot. Let's take damage when we know we're not going to die. There's nothing that can literally kill us. But to the majority of the player base, why the hell should I put my barrier down to take damage? That's going to damage me. Like,
Yeah, that makes. I mean, we are talking pretty high level for sure.
Yes, I know. Yeah, which is fine, which is totally fine. But this has always been the issue with Overwatch. It's you've got this is you can go real conspiracy theorist with this, but the issue with Overwatch is 99.9% of all the content creators are in GM and above. There'll be some outliers that maybe they sit in Masters or Diamonds, but everybody else will be right up
fully
there.
disagree on that. I would say that the loudest.
I'd say all the major
are
ones.
I would say that the loudest content creators are often the ones who care the most and are invested enough in the game to
Yeah.
be at that level of skill. But I'd
Yeah,
say
that's
that
the point.
yeah, and I'd say that in general as a blanketed statement that like. You know what? No.
I think the most
abandoning that.
prominent
I agree with
content
what you just said.
creators
That's what
are
I was trying to
highest.
say.
Yeah,
Are
Yeah.
high.
the most viewed streamers generally like
Yeah.
in any sport or activity really generally are like the professional level play. That's like the Super Bowl's the most
Yeah,
viewed thing.
so-
Go Bengals, who day, by the way.
What you tend to get is you get a very like skewed view of higher level play when the majority of players are I think they're gold and below on ladder. So Sam's always the best example of this. He coming in just bashing Brig. Players are like, Brig's terrible in my game.
I
She does
know,
nothing."
dude.
It's like, yes, because she's in gold, and it's
Yeah.
like you've always got this issue with Overwatch where it's just the content that's being produced is it's got a certain slant to it, which like even if you're trying to relate to other levels of play, it becomes very difficult to do that. I mean, I've probably suffered from this more than all of you guys, to be honest, with all the content that I've been making, where like you can say something and have a major negative reaction from the viewers, and you could make a video, gets 200,000 views, you're talking about, I don't know, balance changes or whatever, and you disagree with a Mercy's a good example. This, so I obviously didn't like mass res, and I was like, "This is terrible. It needs to go." The amount of hate I received for that was astronomical because it is. Wait a minute, Sty. I play Mercy, and I really love jumping out Anubis spawn and resing the entire team. I've played really well there. It's awesome. Yes, it feels awesome. It does feel awesome. Don't get me wrong. We've probably all done it, and we all love it. Evie's definitely done it. You love it, right? It's like, it's great when you do it. But
I'm
so
gonna have to pause you super quickly. I was one of those Mercy players that hated it.
oh, okay. I won't throw
So
you in that basket.
so a little fun fact that I think you three actually all three don't know is one of the key, besides the fact that I just started playing Overwatch, played Mercy and enjoyed her, and I didn't have a reason to swap. Besides that, one of the perpetual reasons that I played Mercy more and kept going with it is because I actually have an eye condition where I'm legally blind, but I basically have perfect vision. It's that a few times a day I will lose my eyesight. I will randomly
Wow.
lose my eyesight for 10 up to 20 seconds. And so ironically enough, the only time I used to hide as Mercy is when I lost my vision, and I would be like, all right, well, I think my Ash was, not Ash, but like, I think at that time it would be like, I think my Cassie is somewhere back there. I would, without looking, be able to turn, fly to them, be in cover, and then I would only be hiding because I couldn't fucking see. And so ironically enough, I hated the whole hiding mentality because why not be in the fight to try and influence the fight to be a favorable outcome, right? And if at worst, tempo res the one or two people who died, right? And so, like, ironically enough, I'm the point being there is I'm actually very often at odds with Mercy players on average. I typically don't agree a very large amount of the time. So that is just, I don't know, completely anecdotal that you might find interesting, but yeah, I don't like mass res.
Very cool. And a great testament to Overwatch's accessibility in general, and I think a reason why so many different heroes can be popular. But Sty, you were in the middle of something.
No, I was just saying that, like, this goes back to play of the game as well. Look at play of the game. I will honestly say play of the game is the best system ever added to Overwatch because it gives everybody the illusion they've just done something awesome. Holy shit, I've just popped tack visor and I've killed everyone. Oh my god, look at this, guys. I can't believe it. And I share it. That's what Overwatch is built to be. And a lot of the moments, a lot of the skills in the game are built around that. Like, I don't want to bash on Brig and go on about Brig, but you look at Brig. Why was Brig added to the game? Well, Brig was added to the game to fix the dive meta at the time, which was too dominant. So let's bring in a support that can counter this. That is at that point, that was a shift in balance philosophy. They hadn't done that before. Well, we all know what that did to the game. And then you start looking at other heroes. You look at Baptiste. Why is Baptiste in the game with Immortality Field?
It shuts down those plays that made everyone
Yeah.
want to play.
Yeah, so it's like
Timeline-wise, was Baptiste after Goats?
Bab was
No,
at the
he was
very
in
end of
Goats because there was. I
He the
remember
very
San
end of
Francisco
Goats.
Shock.
Goats.
San Francisco
He was
Shock ran
Shock.
Goats
Violet was
with
the only
Bap.
team to play him though. The reason why was because so many, there's so many teams that scrimmed and gone up the learning curve. They didn't want to switch off. And while it was still super dominant,
probably.
Brig still hadn't been nerfed to the point. But Violet actually, the Shock ran Bap over Brig, and he was just that good.
I thought it was Rascal at the Shock at the time. I think it was Rascal playing the Bap. I'm not. 100%.
I think it was Rascal actually. Wait a minute.
I think it was Rascal on the Shock playing Bap. If my memory serves me right.
I'm sorry. You're correct. Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
But yeah, he was. I 100% remember that they did that. Go on, Sai.
I mean, Sigma as well is another example. It's you bring out a new hero, you need to make this hero interesting to play. So you look at Reinhardt, you're doing damage or you're shielding. Well, we need to bring a tank out that can maybe do a little bit more, make him a bit more interesting, give him different skills that make him interesting. I think we'll all probably remember the Sigma origin story video.
Amazing.
Which honestly,
by the
was
way.
amazing.
Incredible.
Amazing.
That is incredible to me. And they totally should do some sort of mission in Overwatch 2 where you're inside Sigma's head. That'd be incredible.
Like
anyway,
Krieg in Borderlands 3. Yeah.
Do you know the
yeah.
significance of that story though with the Sigma? Like Sigma was a character created purely out of Magua didn't make sense for the kit. That's it.
Yeah.
So Sigma was their zero out of fucking nowhere character that they had zero incentive to write, and they're just like
that.
they're like they just made they made it.
It shows how talented they are. Seriously.
Yeah.
But I think it's because they were just basically told, right, guys, we need a new hero in 2 weeks, make it, and they were given no oversight, so they just went ahead and made something great. Because he was supposed to be Mauga, but what happened was the abilities didn't fit because Mauga is a Talon heavy tank, from the
Yeah.
Yeah.
PvP
Yeah, the
stuff,
BAP thing,
PvE
yeah.
stuff from it's a dual minigun kind of thing. The skill set just didn't fit with Sigma, so they were like, we need to make something that fits, and they came up with Sigma. But the point I was making is Sigma it's an evolution of hero design. It's more complex. It can do more things, and therefore it's just better. And then it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we've got another balance problem now. And then what's the next hero going to look like? And then the next hero, and then the next hero. What are these heroes going to look like when Overwatch 2 comes out? Are they just going to be absolutely jacked up on steroids? What's
mean-
Sojin going to look like? I mean, Sojin's got a railgun that appears to fire through multiple targets. Some
Piercing.
sort of
Oh.
ultimate. It slides. Is it
That's a
better
dangerous
soldier?
slope. Dangerous slope.
I mean,
What is
isn't
this
the weirdest
hero
thing is
doing?
that she
Yeah.
has a railgun that is her primary fire is projectile still. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you make a railgun that's projectile? Do you know what a fucking railgun is?
We'll find out. We'll find out. I mean,
So yeah,
It-
but like, what are the other heroes? Are they even more like jacked up? Like, it's just ooh.
yeah. Oh god.
But you have to
okay,
make them
here's a good conversation point to build on this. The difference between there's an issue, let's solve it via balance, versus changing for the sake of change.
Yeah. Which
What,
they
like-
did do. So they did do this for a while, right? When they were enforcing hero bans, these heroes are banned. We're the developers. We know
Oh,
best,
right.
so we're not
Holy
letting you.
shit,
ban.
that's a fever dream.
Oh god,
Holy
thank God Frito's not
fuck, I
here.
forgot about that.
So you do that. Listen, at the time, there's a ton of feedback. Okay, there's loads of feedback coming in. The game's stale. You can't let you goats, and it just can't go on forever again. So fix it with balance. No, wait a minute. What we can do is artificially remove heroes to force changes in the meta. So we'll do that.
Is this a good segment
Well, yeah, I mean,
the,
this is-
the implemented hero bans versus
Yes, this might be a good
banning
time
one
to change tack. We've
Well,
gone
there
down
you
a
go.
path a little bit. We had a lot of interesting ideas, but this gives us a good chance to talk about potentially format changes. Yeah, obviously, we will try and forget the Vietnam-inducing PSD that was hero bans, or the
Hero
hero
pool,
pools,
hero
hero
pools.
pools that they
Yeah.
called, some form of hero bans. Really nothing to do with
As
hero
a
bans.
contenders player at the time.
I know,
Not-
but
Yeah.
so I want to bring it back to the idea of like, should there be banning in some form? And I also want to bring it to what was the original inspiration for this, was Sam's tweet, which I'll maybe ask Sam to elaborate on in a minute. But Sam spoke about
My fault. I should have done that earlier. My bad.
yeah, Sam spoke about no, it was, we had a good chat on other things, so it's good that we saved this. And I'll let you phrase this for yourself, but just to set up the seed here, Sam spoke about how, one tricking maybe should be bannable because it's, as Sam will elaborate for a reason, it kind of ruins the
Ruins
competitive
game
integrity.
Yeah, you're not playing as a team. You shouldn't play.
And
It's not
on that
hard.
note, is there ways that we should be able to ban certain heroes to either force broken heroes out the meta for a while, or to allow meta diversity or anything like that? So that's the general theme. On that note, Sam, go ahead and elaborate on your point.
So I'm gonna let you guys follow up with the hero ban talk, because as SVB knows, I actually have been neutral on them for a long time. So I'm gonna open up with elaborating my point. I'll let you guys talk about whether or not bans could make it work, because that's y'all's forte, not really mine. So my tweet, basically, let me define what a one trick is. A one trick is not you have 10 hours on one hero and even just one on a one trick is what I was talking about is, for example, the reason why I tweeted this is because I was playing comp and it was actually on the other team. I wait 15 minutes for DPS queue, which is why I'm not queuing really damage anymore. The roles are the least impactful in the game, and it's not, I'm not waiting that long. And the other team, I finally get my game on DPS, and the other team has a brand new Smurf named Bastion, and he has 24 hours on only Bastion in competitive, in GM. And I'm like, look, it has nothing to do with player skill. You could be rank 1. You could be that one guy who threw down to 0 SR that got rank 1 from going negative in season 2. I don't know if you guys remember that happened. That guy got rank 1 with a 3% win rate on May, and everyone was like, what the heck? So that was fun fact. Maybe the only May, no, Kaiser hit rank 1 on May. I was wrong. Never mind. But regardless, it's about setting up the proper atmosphere. And to quote Jeff Kaplan, game design is about art and science and player perception. And that's a quote that really hit home with me, and it really made me think. It's a perception issue, because right now where the game's at, there's no competitive integrity at all in comp. We all gave it under a 5. That's worse than my
True.
physics grade in high school. And that was pretty bad. All right. I'm just saying, you don't want me in the physics classroom. All right. But, or banning Sigma for that matter. But, it's you have to do something that make your player base want to play. And I'm sorry, comp, just because you paid for the game is not a right, it is a privilege. You go into a team base, the only proper way to play Overwatch is as a team. Now, if you want a one trick as a 6-stack, that is totally fine. Totally fine. Go do it. That is team play. That's encouraging the healthy Overwatch playstyle. Look at Clockwork Vendetta. Look at that storyline, that narrative. That was a beautiful narrative, right? And that was team play. But, you know, if you're not willing to, you're signing up for team play when you queue competitive. And if you want to main a character or practice character, totally fine. But the most egregious examples, the Bastion account that has, you know, 100 hours on Bastion and no other hero, for example, or really whatever hero maybe, it doesn't even matter how good the character is or how bad the character is. Like, that's a no-brainer. I'm not saying your average player who plays maybe 10 hours a season, who plays 10 hours on Brig, and then for 30 minutes will play, you know, Zen. Like, we can let that slide. But the most egregious examples, like, there's no place for that in this team-based game. And that's my opinion. That's my take. Now, if you guys want to emphasize on that, comment on that, or talk about how hero bans could fix it, I honestly have not thought about hero bans enough over the years. I've kind of let them do that. So
I
what do
mean,
y'all
so
thought?
Well, go ahead.
Sam, there's no place for it in the game, but the game allows you to do this. And this is always the issue with the game. So you talk about the Bastion in GM, the one-trick Bastion. Well, it's in GM. So in their mind, well, this is fine.
Yeah.
The issue with Bastion has always been, it's almost like a 50-50. You're either going to win or you're going to lose. The team plays with the Bastion forces them to play with it, or you lose. And so they don't care. They have like a very warped sort of perspective of what's going on in comp, because it's just either win or lose based off what
I
they
have an
appear their
important
team's doing, not them.
here. As somebody who tracked thousands of my matches as a true one trick, which, by the way, Sam, here you go. Here's a picture if you want some PTSD. That was truly my profile.
Oh, the old profiles back, the old. Oh my god, I forgot about this. The season 3 top 500. Oh man.
Why did they ever remove the hover over the profiles? That gave you the quick.
We'll talk about that one later. We will definitely talk about that one later. But yeah. So the
Chat,
thing
this is what
that,
EeveeA is talking about.
So the thing is that as somebody who not only has that much time as a true one trick, but I was very weird about it. Tracking my matches where I have data sets of thousands of matches, and I have the map it was played on, whether or not I won.
This isn't
the
weird. This is
score.
cool.
And so because of that, I think that the mentality of, say, if I was a 46, I peaked 4660 as a true one trick Mercy. The thing that keeps in mind, there were still plenty of people who hated me because of the lack of flexibility and being capable of swapping to what the team, in their mind, was the favorable outcome to win that match, right? Because of the meta, it works for a reason, right? With that being said, that's why we have one tricks who can still be 4,300, 4,400, is because of all these tracking of stats. I can tell you, for example, in season 3, my King's Row win rate as Mercy was like 28%. And then because I analyzed that and was like, all right, well, King's Row is a negative match for me, I, over the course of a season, brought that win rate up to like 64%. But that is an example of how one tricks can stay up at this elo, not even necessarily because they're winning and losing, blah, 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 but because certain maps are more favorable for that one trick character and or other people's perception of that character and the player. And so I think one tricking, performance-based wise, is actually incredible asset to the team who are willing to be like, we have a very good player on this character. If we make one change, maybe instantly we will stomp the enemy team. But people's perception
the
of
mentality of that though is, I have to change to facilitate you, and
exactly,
I'm playing this game, so get off Mercy, and that's what you get.
Yeah.
And it's
The domino
it is
effect.
very
I'd
frustrating.
argue that
stop it.
isn't a good thing, right? I'd argue
No.
having to adapt to other people because they're not willing to make a change is like, well, then why should I make the change? If the entire point is you're not willing to make a change, why should I? And that's completely valid. But I think it's
The game
important
forces
to-
that confrontation though, and it shouldn't. And it really
Exactly.
does
You know
force that, and
where
it's
I was
wrong.
trying to set up my tweet to go next after that?
Go.
You know what could solve that? Group kill.
True. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that, first of all, great point. And can I make an analogy real quick that I love to make to kind of emphasize that and why I think this hits Sty's point, the nail right in the head here about Blizzard and the format. The game sets up that confrontation, and that's why it's on Blizzard to try to improve it, but we never tried to do it. So you go to a steakhouse, right? You go to a steakhouse to order a steak. But the game, when they deliver it to you, you get chicken, right? The chicken still very well could be a great meal, but you went in there and you ordered a steak. Why am I getting chicken? I mean, listen, if somebody brought me spicy nuggets from Wendy's at a steakhouse, I love spicy nuggets. Damn it, I'm in a steakhouse. I want a steak. And it's about delivering what should be promised. It's not about how effective or good the new meal that you're being received is. It's about the player perception. And that's my big problem. I'm not saying it's not effective. It is effective. In fact, it's almost better at times to grind one hero. Like if you look at my profile in season 17, I swapped to be a Brig main because I was or 14, whatever it was, doesn't matter, to learn goats, right? So I'm not trying to doubt the effectiveness, and in fact, that's really impressive that you actually tracked your stats and were able to improve upon, you know, all the low win rates. Not everyone has the brain power and
A
capabilities
testament to
actually
why
do
that would be good for everyone, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? Having those stats for everyone would be great.
That would be awesome. That
Please. Like I should have to have a fucking spreadsheet to find
yeah.
out my win rate per match.
Yeah, yeah. I used to have a spreadsheet. This is CS source, so this is a long time ago. I used to have a spreadsheet that would analyze all of my performance in that, and it makes you a better player because you can see where you're going wrong, and you become a lot better. It's the thing with Overwatch has been, even if an average player sits down and watches a replay back, which the game, it's easy to do this, you can see so many mistakes. And you don't have to be some sort of high-level pro coach. You don't even have to be anything. You can watch your own game back and go, why the hell have I just done that? And you become a better player. So I just wish more players did that, but they don't because they want to play Overwatch.
and it's
not watch their
about
games back.
It's perception and motivation, and it's on Blizzard as the game leaders.
Okay,
look,
Sam. Okay, you
go ahead.
remember when Jeff made a dev update?
Mhm.
Guys, don't be toxic to each other. I was pissing myself laughing. I'm like, is this real? Because this isn't,
that
this
was
isn't a
not great.
community
I
issue.
won't lie.
This is your issue.
You
built
created this
framework.
Yeah,
So
your
what? So
format.
that to me was like, that was a nail in the coffin of like, oh
Yeah.
shit, they don't know what they're doing with this. They're like, guys, don't be nasty to each other. Please play. What is it? Play fair, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
all be
great
friends.
on paper, but like it's our own decisions that lead to this confrontation, and it's on us. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's 100% doable, but we could absolutely make the steps to create that better environment, and it's our responsibility. Not our, but Blizzard's responsibility. I guess kind of on us too as content creators, which, you know, I kind of struggle with sometimes. I get told it all the time, but it's you got to go above and beyond. Like that's what made Overwatch so beautiful when it first came out. Nothing like it had ever been seen, right? And
Well,
that
if you
made
throw
the
hero
players.
bans into this and you go,
Yeah,
does
go
this
ahead.
fix the issues? It doesn't, because you listen to what EeveeA just said. Well, I don't want a Mercy on my team, so I'm going to ban Mercy. Well, that's no good.
Mhm.
You've got what is an extremely talented Mercy player that is probably going to help you win that match if you're going to be fluid and flexible and fit them in. But no, you ban them because you just want to play the same comp over and over again. So with hero bans, if you let the player base start doing the bans, you will get a trickle down from the content creators who are all going, this is the meta, play this meta, you will get better at the game, you'll win more games. Tons of heroes end up getting banned, and it will be the same bans over and over again. You'll see this in like, you know, League of Legends, Dota, whatever. You see it's the same thing, and it filters through. So I think when you look at what Blizzard tried to do with hero pools, that was them trying to be sort of like, quote, fair with hero bans, going, okay, it's now these 5 heroes or 4 heroes or whatever it was. You don't get to play this week, but these other heroes do, and then it, you know, which was stupid because when they implemented that into Overwatch League. I mean, imagine you
They
being...
had the cat.
Oh,
they had the
okay.
cat picking. I forgot about that.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
it's so
I forgot
stupid.
about the
May.
cat.
May was the one, wasn't she, for ages? But
Great
imagine
cat.
if you are...
I love the pets. Don't get me
Wait,
wrong.
excuse me. Am I missing out here? The cat?
Did
They
you
let
not say
Zoe's,
they
they
had
let
the
Zoe's
pets?
cat
Zoe's
decide
cat.
the bans one time.
decided the
No
bans, yeah.
fucking way.
Yeah,
They
like,
let the
adorable
cat pick the.
And then Mr. X's dog did it. And look, I loved the pets. To be
No,
honest,
that was fun.
I liked it.
But think of it this
Speaking
way.
of competitive integrity, letting a cat
Yeah,
randomly
yeah.
draw a hero ban. But anyways,
Hang on.
Incredible.
My point is, you like Mercy or May or Soldier or Genji or whatever, that's the hero you play. You want to watch a pro play this, you load up the Overwatch League broadcast. Sorry, Genji's banned. And you're like, oh, I want to watch Genji play. That's how players are.
Yeah.
They're not like, I want to watch
100%.
Gladiators, I want to watch Spitfire. They want to watch their hero played at a high level, and it's banned. And I'm sitting there like, what is this? This is it's such a
Oh,
bad.
do you know what
Yeah,
was
but
really
Sty,
bad?
all right, wait. I got it real
I'm
quick.
pretty sure Echo came out and then got banned
Yes.
the next
Right,
week.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
remember sitting there like,
They were probably pissed.
I
that
was
happened,
so
yeah.
mad. I had Echo videos popping off, and like that was back when I'm not really grinding YouTube right now, just because like there's no content, there's no point. I remember
Tell
being
me about
so
it.
mad, dude. I literally I was rank 1 on. I was the highest ranked Echo main on the ladder at the time because this is when I was still grinding my mechanics. I had like an 80% win rate. People were coming for Echo gameplay. And I'm like, I can't fucking play the hero. I about lost my mind. I was. Imagine me like getting worked up. Like I was pissed.
Could you imagine a world where let's intentionally make it worse? What if it was a hero ban per like diamond, May was banned, and then in Masters, Ryan was banned.
We're going too down the rabbit hole, and
Frito is rolling in his grave
well,
right now.
I mean,
We're like,
I'm
what?
also-
These guys are saying hero
I'm
ban?
also
Look,
really
I
resisting
love-
the temptation to argue on the hero bans point because that's a whole
I'm
another
just
2-hour
trying- I'm
podcast.
thinking of shitty
But what I
ideas. How
wanna
about that?
what I wanna bring it back to is that does it all come back to the same idea of like, well, there's no one way to play comp though, or even Overwatch League for that matter. But certainly
There is.
speaking our experience as comp, like there's nothing that says when you hit the Q comp button that you have to play a certain way of Overwatch. For some people, it's RPG
There is,
Overwatch
though.
where they one trick. Go ahead, Sam.
There is one way, and that's as a team. The specifics.
No, but there's
are
nowhere that
you
says
all.
that.
No,
Where
it
does it
doesn't
say
say
that?
that,
In
Where does it say that?
team-based shooter in the game genre.
I mean,
But when
is
I
it-
click
is it a
competitive,
shooter?
when I
Is
pick
it a
I mean, it
competitive, it
should
doesn't
say
tell
it
me.
there too, but like it's in the proof's in the pudding. Like it's a team game. Now maybe I'm a very logically driven person, so like that's how I see step 1, 2. I pulled this string, XYZ happens, right? Or like whatever. So like that's just my POV, and I understand that not everyone sees it that way, but let me rephrase. That's what it should say, and that's what it implies through the game genre. Continue. I'm sorry, that was bad.
Yeah, no, it's correct. You're correct that maybe that's what it should say. But the whole problem that all this comes back to is like, well, some people want to ban hero because they feel like that would add depth. Some people are like, well, I just want to one-trick a hero because I want to play RPG Overwatch and I like playing this character. Some people are like, let's hard meta, right? And other people will disagree on what the hard meta even is. Then some people are like, well, I don't care about the meta. I want to play whatever these 6 people feel like playing. So the problem really, I think, we can all disagree on the ins and outs, and one of us might say hero bans are good, one of them might say hero bans bad, one might say one-tricking is good, one might say one-tricking is bad. But does it all come down to the fact that, well, we just can't agree on what a competitive game should look like? Like, when you queue up competitive ladder, I mean. Or certainly
No.
Blizzard can't. Blizzard can't
don't think
decide
so.
and tell you.
I think
Go
we
ahead.
can pretty easily come to a conclusion.
Blizzard know what they want, and it was like what they wanted originally with the beta for PvP, which was 6v6. That's what they want, but they cannot have
Anything
that
works.
because it's not conducive to facilitating fast games being built with 6v6. You just cannot do it. While it is the best way to play Overwatch, it is also the most difficult way to. People do not want to sit there in a queue. It's okay if you're sitting on a stream. You can watch pissing Gordon Ramsay or some shit. It's actually good because it's quite difficult to talk to your chat when you're playing Overwatch. There's too much shit going on. So it's like, you know what? Great. It's a nice little break. Let's farm some subs. I don't know. Something like that. But to the average player, you're like, you got the game minimized and you're just doing some other shit. And then you're like, why?
Minecraft.
Would the game going free to play make that queue?
Yes,
issue
it will.
go
Yes,
away?
it will. And eventually that'll happen and it needs to. We'll get loads of hackers, but it's the price you pay.
We have a better way to catch them than any other game, though. We do with replays, and there's a lot of ways to catch them. Thankfully,
We do. And actually, there was I don't have you guys can probably find this if you search for it, but Activision Blizzard quite
Yes,
recently bought the source code for a machine learning algorithm, which was it was basically a bot for hacking, and it was so good you couldn't detect it, apparently. But the guy released the source code just before he sold it to Activision Blizzard, so it went out, and there's like more advanced versions of this out there. So hacking is a major worry, especially when it can be done on that kind of level, beyond just like, stupid aim bots and whatever. But this is where you come in with like the face it style system and you go, okay, the ladder's completely free to play. The game's free to play. PvE, let's sell it as a DLC or whatever, who cares? And then you've got, right, you want to get serious? Well, you have to buy some sort of access into this, or you need some sort of it can't even be like a level requirement on the account. It can't be.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've got, what is it, like level 25 or something now, but you can't
That
go.
won't stop anything.
I think I've seen in the chat people were talking about like 50% achievement requirements and things like that, but they're just crazy. All of that can be farmed, and you can always get to that level. So there needs to be, if you go free to play, you need to have some sort of a way, I think, of, because I don't think your anti-cheat would
Phone
ever be good enough.
verification would be a start too. Phone verification requirement to play ranked. Right now, you
Yeah.
have it be on top 500, and that's
Yeah.
how it is in Warzone as well to make
Yeah.
an account.
Yeah.
That didn't
And
stop it.
Activision know hacking with Warzone. They've had fun with that, ain't they?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Well-
there's a lot of problems. But Evie, I do
Hogwarts
think free to
cars
play
flying around.
unanimously it is good for the game because more people will play it. Look at Apex Legends, right?
For sure.
They're doing okay. They keep growing. Overwatch isn't growing, is it? It's just like. But the thing with Overwatch and free to play is the game isn't built to sustain free to play. You don't have the monetization systems in the game for it. The loot boxes, it's old news. You know, they need different systems,
I wouldn't be
monetization, all
surprised if we
kinds of
don't
stuff.
have loot boxes in Overwatch 2, for example.
I don't think we will because loot boxes are banned in a lot of European countries.
I think developers are moving
So,
on that, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, but again, it's kind of this idea that the more you can make comp more, you can give it more integrity or ways to abuse it less likely, but that also increases the barrier to entry, right? So if you add mobile verification, you guys don't have phones? Like some people are like, well, I don't want to do
But
that.
if your player base is 10 times as large, then you're laughing.
Yeah.
Well, this is the
That's always-
question though, but there's always
Laugh it
a
all the way to the
cost.
bank, as the saying goes.
There's
Yeah.
always a
Oh,
cost,
yeah.
right?
There is. There's no easy solution to these problems. That's the issue.
But you
And
got to
none of
commit
this-
and tackle it head on, and that's something I feel like we struggle with a lot. Is that
Yes, definitely, Sam. You can argue 100% that they've never really just committed to anything and gone for it. It's always kind of been like, I'll
in
do a
the
bit of this,
middle,
we'll
be in
try
the
a bit of
middle.
that.
Like commit.
Yeah.
What's your identity? Are you a steakhouse or are you McDonald's? Because both are very valuable business strategies, right? Both are. But if you're in the middle on this, I draw this chart all the time. Like there's in business, like this is what my dad kind of taught me is, you know, there's high-end expensive stuff and there's like 4 different squares in the spectrum, like and a perpendicular chart in the middle. I'm terrible at art. Literally got to be in art class. I was that kid, just for context here. You're either high-end expensive or low-end cheap. But the worst place you could be is in the middle because you don't have a product identity and a consumer base to identify with, right? And I feel like that's kind of what we did. We didn't choose to have a competitive true format, but we also didn't make it completely casual either. And we're kind of stuck in the middle. And I feel like we can apply that to a lot of different things, but we just got to commit. I'm not sure what the specifics would be, and I'm sorry for cutting you off again.
No, I think we aren't here to debate semantics and specifics. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
in-
so I
as
probably
a
went off
whole.
topic
And so,
there.
like, no, I know. I'm my point being your analogy, even if it is one-track food, makes complete sense. Like, there's no focus. Like the player base is either you're paying for a game, but also at the same time you're getting. It doesn't feel like we're getting a full paid experience in some ways when it comes to
But
the focus of competitive integrity.
Even with Sam's crazy analogy, like look at what they've tried to do. So roll queue is a way of going. You've stepped into the restaurant, but here, hang on, there's roll queue. So you're
love food.
100% going to get 6 items of food right in the restaurant. It's not going to just be
It could
all
be
the
chicken
same.
nuggets.
They're going to be
It could
different.
be steak. You
Go
never
even
know.
further back. When there was just you could play the same hero. The whole team could be 6 Lucios. So they kind of do make these little changes. They try to fix things, but it's just I don't know. Overwatch. It has the McDonald's option with quick play and the arcade, and that's where people
And it's
play.
great.
I know loads of people that play together regularly and have done for years and years and years. It's normally on console because I'm like a bit of in my real life friends, I'm a bit of an outlier. I'm like in the UK, most people play on Xboxes and God knows what. They're not generally playing on the PC. Not in my age group anyway, but they're all playing on consoles. They're playing on their Xboxes, the PlayStations, and they're just playing together and they're having fun and they're really enjoying it. The skill levels are all over the place. They don't care. They come to me. They tell me stories of things that have happened here. And I'm like, wow, this is great. That's the Overwatch experience Blizzard are selling. And by the way, we've tacked on this competitive. Oh, God, now we've got this Overwatch League thing. So we need to start trying to develop some sort of system for all of this stuff. And then we end up with what we have sort of gone through over the last few years, I think, where we end up with a competitive system, which is, well, like we said, doesn't really have much integrity because it lacks a hell of a lot of the baseline systems. Like why isn't there a comprehensive scoreboard? Oh wait, there actually was, and then they removed it out of the game. Well,
Wait.
we'll get rid of that because of toxicity issues, right?
Wait, what
Okay,
was it?
that's fine.
Oh,
There
Sam,
was.
you haven't seen this.
Yeah, there was a scoreboard.
Yeah, pre-release there was a scoreboard in Overwatch.
Oh wow, I was writing Minecraft at the time. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, do you
So-
want to find a screenshot super quickly? Yeah.
But my issue is, right? Okay, get that out of quick play, but leave it in comp. Why was it just got rid of everything? It's
This-
like
this
no,
also
Get rid
brings
of
me
private
to-
profiles too.
Yes,
all of it.
this is what I was
Okay.
going to
Get
bring
this
up. So
shit
this is
outta
another
here.
thing, the private profile and the hover thing. That's something we wanted to bring up, right? Sty, is that something you want to talk about, or should we...
Yeah. So the hover thing, Jesus Christ, like. I'm hoping this is something we get for Overwatch 2, where we can actually show on our profile our preferred heroes that we want to play. You know, so look at what we play. You know, these are the tanks I play, these are the supports I play, whatever. So people get an idea. The hover, I don't know why they ever removed that, because at a glance let you
Did
quickly
they
look.
even mention that in patch notes?
No, it was just
They
gone.
did.
They
I remember the
did it
reason
when
they gave.
private
I remember the
profiles came
reason
in.
they gave. So I remember Jeff. It might have been in the Discord. I can't remember where he said it.
That was my favorite.
He
feature they
said
added.
basically the problem with the hover is that it's locking people into the roles that they start with, and we don't want to force people. So basically, if they're like, if they're like, they have 5 hours on Mercy and they hover over, people are like, well, you must only play Mercy, so play Mercy. So he felt like it was locking people into the heroes they started playing with.
This is depressing.
I can't deny that that's
Sorry,
the case,
Evie.
but at the same time, it's the people are doing
And
that
roll
anyway.
queue, that's not a problem anymore either.
True.
So,
True.
Roll
Very
queue. Let's
fucking true.
say that's a
Yeah, 'cause
valid
this was
argument, which I
removed
don't think it
before roll
is.
queue, right?
Yes, it was. Private profiles were added before, and I think because here's the thing with private profiles too that I've talked about. It didn't stop any of the toxicity at
No,
all.
in fact, I
In
think
fact, it made
worse.
people more
It
mad.
fucking
Like
worse.
it's just like because now, like
It's another
here's
point
the
of
problem.
confrontation.
Mhm.
Sam, why is your profile private?
Yes,
You know,
Sam.
show me your profile. You get that at the start of games,
Hmm.
and rightfully so, because you want to know what these people
These
play.
people play because
Yeah,
there
but
are
it's
some
another,
people
like,
who would
friction
use it
point.
for the wrong information, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we continuously punish the people who would use it for the right reasons, taking more competitive integrity away from the game. Like,
Remember when we
look,
couldn't see old charges?
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
hold on, I need to get some water. Hold on, oh my
Yeah.
God, remind me. Oh my goodness.
Well, again, this just brings us back to that same issue, right? It's like we want to be a competitive game, and Aaron Keller's like, I really want Overwatch 2 to be more competitive, but then we take decisions that don't further that end, right? Where we're not giving people all the information that a competitive game would give them. And this is another example. We got on screen now the stat board, but the whole not giving private profiles, not giving number information in game as well. We spoke about this before the call started, but if I want to know how much damage a fire strike does, I have to go to fucking Google and Gamepedia.
Yeah.
I don't know
100%.
how much damage a fire strike does. So if I wanted to figure out, well, what is the maths on Reinhardt killing X thing, I have to either intuit that in game, because again, I don't even know how much damage a swing does. It's not like a number that pops up. If I hit someone, it's not like a number that pops up.
Oh, that's
I have to
another
like
thing.
They did
should
have
be
that. Okay,
optional.
I think they did have that. They had floating damage text. That was in a build of the game. That was, and then they got rid of it.
That should
'cause
just be
it-
optional. That should be in the game,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
opt in. 100%.
Because it would be
Yeah.
so useful. I mean, right now, if you want to see the damage numbers, you can load up workshop modes and check out the damage numbers. You know, there are ways of doing it. But again, that's like so far and beyond any average player who's not going to go, well, I'm going to go and find the workshop code to find out the damage of this and that. They're just never going to
I
do
mean,
that.
hell, I'm a content creator. I don't even know where the fuck a works. I don't know what codes are available that have that. I would love to load that up.
And Sam,
occasionally.
like for example, got that. Sam, I'm just talking about you there. You got that screenshot brought up of how far Briggs Inspire is, right? Which again, it's like
Yeah,
there's no
4
nowhere
times
to
the
find
volume of
that.
Lucio. Yeah, it's four.
But again, it's like
times the
these
volume.
these pieces of information are not clear at all, and that
Oh, have
and
you
misinformation
seen
always
Boop
makes it harder.
visualized?
Sorry,
Like
go
the
ahead.
Boop cone visualized, for example, as well. Stuff like that of like AOE abilities that we take for granted visualized.
EMP.
Well,
Enormous.
EMP, but no, I was mentioning. Have you seen Lucio Boop visualize the cone?
Mm-mm.
I can't remember the creator, but somebody put it out
Karki,
to
probably.
their mission to like visualize abilities that we take for granted, like Cassidy Flashbang 2. How fucking
Oh
large
god, that shit is
bubble
Oh, yes,
massive.
yeah.
That shit is massive.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, someone else keep going.
Speaking
No, but
of
I guess
food, talk about.
Sam, you finally, of all that talk about steak, and you went and got a taco.
Take my taco.
All right. Before we go deeper down the food analogy, I think the point being that we're denied a lot of information. This is where the private profile thing comes in, right? With the idea of almost like more information would make us more toxic. But are what we are saying in this call is that, are we saying, no, we want more information to help us be better informed?
In the right setting. And that's the core issue, right? We don't attack the fundamentals because we're getting to the nitty gritty the same way as Blizzard did, right? But we need to set up the core issue, the foundation, because all like we could talk hero bans, we could talk hero information, we could talk all that as much as we want. But the most important thing is that we've neglected is that we have never set the stage for that information or whatever it may be, because it could be anything, to actually be applied in a healthy way that we can learn from and improve. Whenever I stack with my buddies, whether it be a Warzone or this game or scrims, all of that information is still the same, right? What's the difference? It's the setting that Blizzard supplies us to use it in. And we've never once in this game's history done that. So why not try it, right? It's not going to be perfect. You're still always going to have that one dumbass. I mean, look at me, right? But, you know, it'd be better than it is now. So, like, I don't want to argue too much in the nitty gritty. We just have to find the right place and setting and environment to make sure that information is actually useful. And that's how you take the game to its peak potential.
Absolutely.
In my opinion. I might be wrong, but.
I mean, I agree. Yeah.
I think
Sty, I
the
see
issue
you
is you can
pondering.
weaponize this information.
Yeah.
This is the problem. So if you're looking at a scoreboard and you're looking at your DPS and you've got, I don't know, a McCree and he's got no eliminations and we're like pretty far into the game, we're like, well, clearly this is the reason why we are losing. This is evidence. It's irrefutable. This guy's terrible. I don't want him on my team anymore. So what would you do in that scenario? You would not be like,
is it toxic
hi.
to be like, yo, soldier, we need flashbang. Can you go Cassidy? To perception wise, to all
Yeah.
of us, that doesn't feel toxic now, is it?
No.
But to the average player, asking someone to swap is like telling them you are the worst player on this team.
No. Yeah, it's
Hate
saying
that.
you've failed at the hero you have selected to play because you think you are good at that hero. I am telling you, you are bad. And the moment you've got evidence to sort of support that, you're like, ha, I told you so. You are bad. This is Blizzard's issue, and this is why they didn't have a scoreboard in the game. The thing is, I would argue, and the counterpoint to this is, just leave the scoreboard in comp and get rid of it in quick play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another thing I'll say about Overwatch quick play, why isn't it the same as competitive?
The format, I was gonna say that because like I was
at
talking
Apex,
about a
man.
quick
Look-
ranked or something like that. You're completely right. It's
You're not
crazy.
being trained for competitive. You're just trained to piss about. So then you go into competitive and go, well, I'm having a really fun time, and suddenly I'm being told I can't play this hero. This is the everything is more serious, but the format is different. Apex, you just play normal Apex unranked. It's exactly the same as ranked. So you don't care in your head. You're playing the unranked mode, having fun, but you're in a way learning the ranked mode, and you're kind of getting a little bit more prepared for it, and it sets you up a little bit better for it. Obviously, it's a completely different genre with it being BR, but and this is the problem with Overwatch. What can we compare it to? Team Fortress 2. Okay.
You gotta forge your own path. Be proactive. Make a choice.
Yeah.
Here's the reality. Competitive in its competition in its nature is not always sunshine and daisies. And
No, it isn't. It isn't. No, Sam. So this is the other issue with you are out there to kill and destroy the enemy team. You're not there to make friends with them, right? The people on your team are your allies, and you destroy the enemy, right?
Yeah.
This is how it is. When I played sports, that's exactly how we were trained. You do not talk to the other team. You go out there and you deal with them, right? That's it.
Yeah.
You're not standing in a tunnel going, "Hey guys, you had a great weekend. Let's go and play some football." No, it was they die, you win,
win.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's a very like extreme view of competitive. A lot of Overwatch League teams would operate like that, and rightfully so, because you're there to win. You're not there to be friends with people. You're there to win. A lot of pro teams would operate like that. But when you put that in the world of Overwatch, which is welcoming, which is we're all having fun together. I've had a ton of fun in quick play. I'm going to try and play comp. For some reason, I've queued into Sam, and he's just going mental at me. Well, oh man, this is not the experience I wanted. But it's like, yeah, hello, we're in competitive. We're here to win. That's because you've got the mentality to win. You want to win at any cost. But players are going into this machine of comp, not equipped for that, and it's ugh.
But again, this is
The
what I keep
message is
harping
warped.
on about, because it's like, well, there's that school of thought, which is like competitive means this. But that doesn't, it's not what it means to a lot of people. A lot of people hear what you just said, Sty, and they're like, that
100%.
sounds shit.
Yeah, it does. It does, right? Like, who would want to play that as a game? See, this is a game, right? It has to be entertainment. It's got to be fun. It's not like do or die. I'm stressed out of my mind. I cannot believe it. But that's what Overwatch comp is, because you go in, you go on a losing streak, and you're like, this ain't my fault. It might be, might not be, but the perception
But
you've got is it's nothing to do with me.
you're completely right. And I actually agree
Well-
with you. But you know how we can solve that?
Don't play Overwatch. No, I don't.
Group queue.
So
Group
th-
queue.
this is the
You,
problem.
So that you
They
and your
gave
friends
themselves
can,
these issues. So
can learn.
to
It's not
solve these
perfect,
problems,
but it's better.
well, think of like the game flow of Overwatch. You log into Overwatch, you're looking at the main menu, you go to the play cards, okay, quick play arcade, what comp or whatever. Imagine if you went into Overwatch, but you were actually going into, let's say there was a fully functioning clan system, guild system.
Mhm.
You're going into a community. And maybe there's a bunch of players in there of your rank, and you can start building teams together within your guild that you're a part of. It doesn't always have to be the same team, but if it's gold rated players, there may be, I don't know, 100 gold players in this guild. You're already getting familiar, you're getting to know each other. The problem with Overwatch is when you queue in to a match with people, you don't know who they are, so you're immediately hostile to them the moment they say anything to you. Now,
Yep.
you guys are lucky. You play on NA servers. If you play on EU,
Oh,
good
God.
fucking luck with any of that
I had
shit.
EU teammates. I
Yeah.
heard stories like, oh my God.
The language issues are terrible. Not everyone speaks English, obviously. And when people do speak English, they can be very abrupt. They don't mean to be. They can be very direct.
Yeah.
Your trash tracer changed now. You're like, well, that's not great, is it? You're like, who the fuck, man? Are you telling me to do?
Yeah.
That's the problem. NA is a bit different. It's a bit. I'd say NA is a lot easier as an English speaking person anyway to sort of deal with that stuff. But yeah, imagine you go into a system. You're kind of getting to know players around your rank. You're not just being randomly placed with them. That makes you more friendly towards them, so you understand them a little bit more, right?
You're going to put in the effort together.
Yes, yeah, because the game's allowing you to do it,
all
right? You're not just going in and going, right, all I'm doing is clicking a random play button. Let's go. Who do I get this game? You guys obviously queue into the same people quite often, so you'll know, okay, I've got a ball one trick, I've got whatever, we're going to have to work around it. But for the majority of players, it's different people every single time. I don't want to make friends with these people. And the moment they start talking, it's often quite hostile just because of the way the game's set up. But that's probably not a solution to it anyway. And again, this just goes back to the whole issue. There isn't really an easy solution to this because deep down, you need the random dynamic queues, else you just can't fill matches. And your game will then die out.
Here's the best, and this is why I think this is the best case scenario for us, because we've kind of walked down the path of letting everything kind of play out. And especially this is why I re-emphasize the point of, like, if you look at how all the big Warzone streamers stack together, those people and those creators could lead by example in a group queue. And the number one, because we can't change the reality of that, Sty, you're completely right. It's unchangeable. That is human nature. It's been proven through psychology. It is just facts, right? What you can change is player perception. And that's where I go back to what Jeff said, art, science, perception, right? We have to look at the art side of it, because that's the best case scenario that we can find. And let the figureheads of gaming that will come back and play this game, they will. Let them set the example and give your content creators the tools to set that bar. Because if you put us in a team environment, we will thrive. We will work together and we will show people, hey, look, we might be playing poorly here, but that's not personal. Let's do what we can.
The thing is, though, Sam, that shouldn't depend on content creators. The game should be good enough to actually communicate that to its players. If they're relying on content creators, that's not, because
it's a start.
Look at what happened with Sinatra. Look at what happened with Sinatra. You've got a skin in the game, and then we get all of that drama coming through. Blizzard are in a very difficult position. Then, of course, we've seen everything that happened with Cassidy being renamed.
Also, so many people don't even ever listen or watch the content creators at all. Like, in fact,
yeah,
maybe
so this
even
is
the
the other
majority
thing
of
as
people.
well. Yeah, that's completely true.
You got to start a trend somewhere.
Well,
And,
I think the trend should start
with to be specific people. It's like, it's more so if you create. I think you're right. Sorry, it's you create the format, the group queue with clans and stuff, and the content creators will come and play that, and then it will show your average gamer. And either way, even if it's only 50% of them, right? 50% of the huge player boost we're gonna get because the reality is not everyone's gonna stick around and play the game. That's just
no.
That's just the state of life. But that is best case scenario, because and that is the one thing that I've struggled with as well. Is like, I want perfection in everything I do in my life. And it's hard to wrap your head around a concept that is unsolvable, right? So in these situations, I think we just have to do the best we can. And I see that cue directly stopping a lot of those problems before it happens better than any way we've tried to implement features to do it through the game now. And it's not perfect, you're right. And a lot of the things you're saying are spot on and correct. That being said, I don't see a better alternative to that to get the true experience of Overwatch that will keep our game in that tier 1 competition aspect than what we have now. And it's not
Well,
perfect, you're right. But
I agree with you, Sana. I agree with you. And all I would do is I would take it one step back. You're saying give it to the content creators and let them be the example. I would just
I'm
take it
saying
one step back and be,
make the format, and then
yeah,
they will play that format, and then you're a consumer. And if you look at how a lot of the game titles have blown up, even pre-Among Us, even Fortnite, you could argue, right? But Among Us was like the very obvious one where it's like, okay, well, damn, this game came out. It was out for 2 years, came out of nowhere. Everyone started playing it. Boom! Multiplayer of the year. Incredible, right? I continue, SB. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I was just gonna say that. I just think it has to come from the devs. That's all I was gonna say. Is that
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I didn't phrase that.
No,
And
no.
They start it. The creators use the tool they give them, and then.
Well, I think, Sam, so I'm on record. I went in on Blizzard PR and all of that stuff because I've dealt with them for a very long time on Twitter. It got a ton of interaction and all of that stuff. But it does, and we've experienced this now. Blizzard are actively trying to talk to us, and they've never ever done this before. No one ever spoke to me at Blizzard before any of this. It was, I'm trying to go through Blizzard PR. I'm trying to send emails to Jeff, trying to get any kind of information. It's crazy. It's like, it shouldn't be like that. And then you'd look at other titles. You'd look at Apex. You'd look at Valorant, and you'd see, oh my God, these guys are actually supporting creators. Now, what SVB said is completely correct. Creators are not, they're not going to make or break your game. Your game needs to be good on some sort of level. It needs to be a good offering. They'll latch onto it. They'll start making content. Yeah, it acts as a massive free marketing machine for your game, especially if they can play together and they can keep coming back. Well, they're going to keep coming back, sure. But it's not, that shouldn't be
solution.
That they shouldn't. What I guess what I'm trying to say is the developers shouldn't be underpinning that. That's something additional teams can do. Community managers, PR, things like that. They can work on that external to the game. They don't have to be. It's not the developer's job to go, holy shit, I need to make something now so Sty can make better overanalyzed videos or whatever, right? Because if I don't do that, he's not going to do it. And holy shit, it's like, no. We were like overanalyze my stupid VOD review series. I was doing that for literally since 2016. There was no replay viewer there. We're just watching YouTube VOD back, VODs back. So you work. But the thing is, though, that's a good example. If you work around it, you make it work. If the game is good enough, right?
Yeah.
If the
100%.
underlying foundation is worth your effort and time. So,
I agree with you. I think I phrased what I was saying poorly. I agree with what you're saying. I should have said that part.
I don't think you did.
That.
No, I don't think you did, because the other thing as well is content creators do need assistance. Like, a lot of people from the outside think that you can just do what you like. It's all great and fine, but you kind of do need assistance. Knowing when, let's say, the experimental card was going to update, right? Now, I don't care if Blizzard want to arrest me for this or whatever, but we had like a 2 days heads up on that. So we knew what the patch notes were. Well, this is great, right? This means you can go, hey, I can plan for this, and I can maybe think about cool content to make around this, and that helps. That really does help. And that is not the game. That is teams inside Blizzard who are trying to do that, and they're way behind. They're way behind the industry for that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just think like if we go down the path of going, Blizzard need to do things in the game to make content creators play. It links into what SVB said. The majority of the player base don't watch content creators, even if it's XQC, even if it's Dr. Disrespect. They don't watch them, even if they've got 10 million views on a VOD.
Can I rephrase my initial statement?
No, that's it now.
It's on Reddit already, Sam. It's already on Reddit.
You're right. I should not have said that.
It's already on Reddit.
The goal to get content creators should not be number one. You make the great game first, and then use the additional assets, which are the content creators. So yeah,
I would argue an aspect to consider here, like part of this formula, is that the biggest advocates for your game are often the people who criticize it the most, combined with the people who are watching the content creators are the people who do care the most, oftentimes.
Yes, yeah.
And so
They're the most engaged, yeah.
Yeah, and so among their friends, they become advocates for the game, right? And so I would say that I think we okay, I'm gonna say my criticism of everything just stated is like I agree with pretty much everything. Besides, I think we need to respect the fact that content creators have a bit more influence than I think we realize on the general player base. Where if we're saying like more than 50% of the player base are not watching streamers, sure, absolutely, right? But understanding the influence of a person who's watching a streamer, their opinion is then influenced by the streamer, and then that person is talking to all their friends.
Down.
That trickle down is very fucking aggressive in many ways.
That's how I got into Among Us. That's how I got into Warzone.
Oh.
It's small. It's really crazy how like you ever think about how we just overlook like the simplest things that can go a very long way.
Yeah.
Sorry to go. That's not really off topic, but like for Overwatch as well. Like that's how like a lot of my buddies and I became friends. Like just from hearsay about Overwatch. Like that's how I reconnected with my best friends. Now, like my roommate, I never would have met him, and it turns out his parents knew my parents when they grew up together. I never would have met him or lived in Cincinnati now. Who day? If I had not hit rank 1 in Overwatch and my buddy I went to preschool with donated $5 to my stream, said, "Hey man, I'm a Diamond Reinhardt. You want to play sometime? I haven't heard from you in a while." I was like, "Dude, let's go grab a Smashing Tomato." We drive like it's the small world connections that like a good product can create that trickles and expands, and it's just such a beautiful thing in the world. I think it's what makes gaming. It's gonna be what puts gaming on top in 50 years. Even now, like we made more revenue last year than what sports and film combined, or something crazy. Mostly mobile. 70% of the world's gaming revenue comes from mobile. Overwatch mobile. Gotta happen. I'm ready. I'll be playing. I'll be grinding. Sai, you want a 1v1 in Overwatch mobile?
I hope Overwatch Mobile. Oh, sorry. Let me. I'll just quickly say this. I hope Overwatch Mobile is completely different. Like I want like an XCOM style tactics game. That's what I want on mobile. I don't want to play. I do not want to play what I'm playing on PC. I want like to deploy a squad.
Have you seen the Apex version of mobile?
No,
pretty different. I mean, it's created by a different team and it has many nuanced different.
Yeah, it has like third-person camera, doesn't it?
I can't remember.
At some points.
Who was the mobile game studio Activision Blizzard just bought before they got bought by Microsoft? They bought one, didn't they? No, maybe it was Zynga that got bought by EA.
Yeah, I think
no, Take-Two bought Zynga.
Take-Two bought, yeah.
12 billion.
Yeah.
And then
which
we're
was
like,
the
wow,
biggest at the time.
That's
Blizzard was like, hold my beer. Hold my beer.
Boom, on the table, yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's what I was going to say is I think it's difficult really to judge. I mean, only the people on the development side will really know exactly what the influence of a content creator is. And even that, I believe, is quite a topic of discussion in the industry because it's like...
I went off topic.
Even me on YouTube, there's literally like 350 million people have been stupid enough to watch my YouTube videos. That's a lot of people, right? That's a lot of views. So people do watch this stuff and they are influenced by it. We're all going to have stories where we've affected people's lives. When I've been at Overwatch League finals, tons of people will come up to me. "Oh, Sty, I was at a low point in my life and I watched this video and I loved it." It's always difficult for me because I'm trying to think what the hell, what video are they talking about? I've made thousands. I'm like, and I'm trying to remember because they remember specific points in videos and it's really cool. So you do have you have connections to people. There was two US Marines was the one I always remember, and they were brothers and they'd fell out with each other. And they actually connected over one of the videos that I made, and it became the way they got back together, and that's sort of how their relationship came back together. So you get all of these little stories, which is really cool. And content creators do have an impact. I don't know. It just feels it's really weird to me to talk about it because it we obviously want all of the things. Like we want a creator code in the game. We want all these systems that would help us because hey, it would be great to make a ton of money. Let's be real, but it's also like, I don't know. I think we're the worst people to ask about it, basically, because
it's an unconscious bias. Would you say? Or
no, absolutely, yeah.
It's not even.
It's really difficult because again, even in this discussion, like it's really hard for us to separate the experience we have versus what. I mean, a lot of us will try to represent our community, right? But it's really hard because even this discussion. Yeah, we're like, but there's so many vocal people that get their opinions from content creators. Yeah, but vocal where? Vocal on the places where, like, Overwatch forums or something.
Go and look at the Overwatch
90% of people don't even look at the Overwatch forums, right?
Yeah, like, every time I go on the forums, I get accused of doxing people, so I'm going to stay off
But the Overwatch forums,
Well,
I
no
think,
fucking way.
hang on. If you're a player of Overwatch and you want to give feedback and you consume no content or anything on the game, you don't use social media or whatever, you go to the forums, and the forums are very indicative of that, of the very average player who's not that much engaged, who wants to suddenly become engaged with the game, so goes on and rants about something absolutely insane. Like, that's nothing to do with anybody who's got any semblance of intellect when it comes to the game will be like, what are these people talking about?
I mean, but style.
I don't even know if I agree with that. I don't even know if I agree with that. I think
I don't understand. What's the issue?
I think the typical player never comments on anything. I think like that's the average, in my opinion. I think
Yeah,
the
for
average
sure.
player just literally never watches anything, never really, or maybe watches like the odd video, and never really engages and never comments on anything. And so it's hard to really get that perception of like, well, what are we talking about when we talk about the average player? Yes, we want to keep the most engaged players engaged, right? Because they're the lifeblood of the community. Those are the people who will watch content creators. Those are the people who will stick around and give their opinions about balance and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic. The kind of thing I wanted to get to it with is, there has to be a clear message. And, we were talking about toxicity ostensibly. I'm looking recently at what Riot have been doing with Valorant. And they just they started an initiative first where they allowed a mute list for every player. So you can have a customizable mute list of words that you want banned from your match chat, right? So for example, they gave the example of like, let's say you thought Stylosa was a bad word. Well, you can not only ban Stylosa, but you can ban Sty 1 Osa, right? Like rather than the L, you can, so all the variations that people will use with the bad words, you can ban all the ones that you want. And then they said, using that, we're going to adapt our own mute list, right? So we'll use your guys, whatever's coming up, we'll use that to mute the bad words. So that was a great start already. And I actually shared this with the Blizzard developers. I'm like, hey guys, can we do this? On top of that, they've now trialed in Turkey a system where they're responding to voice chat abuse, where they have physical moderators who are listening to the voice chat abuses and acting on it to get people banned. Now, of course, there's privacy issues with like, should a company be able to listen to our voice chat, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, isn't the privacy issue fundamentally expanded upon that? The fact that anybody could be streaming and recording anything?
Well,
Like,
yeah.
I'd almost argue, like, okay, maybe this is a completely uneducated take, but I think the notion that it's a bad thing for developers to be recording match chat, it's like, you're talking via their video game. No fucking shit they have the right to record what's happening in their video game. I feel like
And
that's
that
a
would be okay,
non-starter.
because then you could actually separate the people who use information and shit that in an unproductive way. Because what we did is we kind of lumped a lot of stuff like in game as just toxicity, when it could have been like you said, like, hey man, like Tracer's not working here, can you swap? And the other guy's like, oh fuck you, and then it's just like a giant just mess, and it's not productive. It's just a waste of everyone's time and energy. So like, live game moderation would be a great solution. And when the hacking problem does come, because it will be a great way to catch them faster.
Yeah, and I mean, just from a personal anecdote, a pain point is like, the amount of people that are so fucking spineless on their mains, but then they'll call me every version of tranny on their alt. Like Blizzard can't do anything about that. Of being like, yeah, their main account should also get the punishment, but they can just avoid that from their alt, and that's to say, even if their alt gets punished, which most of the time they don't. So it's like,
true.
But
I've seen some of the
I mean,
usernames these kids make. Like, how is that
No,
allowed? Like,
it's crazy, some of the stuff people, but that's what I mean. I think like bringing it back to the idea of toxicity, because I think toxicity affects competitive integrity too, because if you start ostracizing certain groups of people, and it's not a
100%.
it's not a fair playing field, right? If some people are being harassed or just targeted a lot, it's not a fair playing field anymore. And I look, I mean, maybe it's all rosy outside looking in, but I look at what Valorant is doing, and I think that's a team that are taking a firm stance on certain issues. Now, I'm not saying, like we're saying, Blizzard are doing a better job, which I know when I say that, people are like, shut up, you NDA scum. You're just saying it because you have access to secret information. But I do think they are trying a better line. Yeah, we have all the things. I do think they're trying a better line of thing, but I still think there's a long way to go to even catch up, as Sty said earlier, to our competitors. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, the problem is there's no team. So when I first started covering Overwatch, there was community managers for every single language. Like Europe had like 20 community managers. It was insane. We'd go to events and there'd be 5, 6, 7 Polish content creators. with 2 community managers with them. There'd be French content creators with 2 French community managers with them. It was insane. So the support was there. But at some point, Blizzard were like, we don't need these these community management teams. We'll just get rid of them. And they did. And what's happened is that knocked them right back to square one. And now they're trying to catch up again. Things like with Riot. Riot Riot seemed pretty good at incubating new ideas when it comes to how to deal with toxicity in their game, or even just new ways that they're quite innovative. Whereas you look at Blizzard don't seem to be doing anything. Like, again, maybe it's staffing issues. Obviously, there's a lot going on at Blizzard. So it would be nice to kind of see them take the lead again, like they used to do years and years ago, because there was a lot of innovation in Blizzard.
I agree. EeveeA, I mean, what do you feel about this? Because you're obviously, you already alluded to some of the ways you're targeted.
I mean, it's kind of like just again, the notion that somebody can be on the alt and there's zero ramifications of that. The amount I can't count the amount of times I'd say, yo, what's up, team? In that exact tone, and then two people, poof, left voice channel, text, I don't want to listen to a tranny. That kind of shit. Like that stuff happens nonstop, and the reports do nothing. Like I see people who say, frankly, like it's not a good comparison, but it's more like to acknowledge that not all aspects are up to par, where and trust me, it's still an issue, but like say it feels like to the current moderation system, racism is more of an obvious thing that gets punished. But even then, so much of it gets through the cracks, even with racism. But as a comparison to, there's so many different slurs for trans people that then, that doesn't fucking matter and it doesn't happen. So, and my personal anecdotal is like, there are different minorities that are not getting enough, like at least even text-based chat protection, which is the most basic form of moderation you can do, because it's not even recording voice chat. It's not, moderating in-game player behavior, et cetera, right? It's the most basic form, and it's like, and that's bringing back to what you were saying about Valorant having the opt-in word filter and learning, and them being able to learn from what words players are filtering out, right? That will be massive if Overwatch got that for this exact reason. And I would argue that being capable of the voice recordings, I don't necessarily think we need people to be like listening and always moderating every single, like be capable of like, oh, there's a report, gotta go listen. It's more like if you have somebody who has had 10 reports in voice penalties, like having that recording, yeah, that would be helpful. For because there's just people who get away with way too much shit and then just swap account. There's a fundamental issue there. And I'd say that one of the biggest things is Overwatch team just seems scared to do hardware bans.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Why? Hardware ban.
Well, this brings us to a good question as well, because I know a lot of people I know will listening and they'll be like, well, bring up alts, bring up Smurfs, because we're talking about competitive integrity. These shits are horrible. And for those reasons that you stated, but go.
I mean,
Sty's like, oh god, I've been on this train for so long.
Alt accounts are an issue in the first place because your ranked system is fucking garbage. And like the fact that you create roll queue and you create 3 different numerical values and you didn't fucking reset. So
that was bad. That was bad.
Anytime I queue on tank, even though objectively when I'm warmed up, my Zarya is 4.3. But people see EeveeA on Zarya and they're like, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. They're just like instantly like, oh, this
you didn't improve your rank again. Like that was, yes. I remember talking with like some of the Blizzard people at the time, and they were like, well, Scott's on it. Like, Scott Mercy, who is very smart. I'm not trying to demean them at all, but they're like, well, just ruin the quality matches. I'm like, y'all, like this was the best op. Like you remember like Yeatle was 4,500 on cast, and he's like, I'm not 4.5. I just threw so many games. Like that was like this is what I mean.
Create alt accounts.
Yeah, and like I want to see an aggressive commitment to a concept, because like again, it's more like what Sty was saying earlier. It's like, well, we'll throw it out there, but then we'll kind of stay in the middle. It's like, no, like, are we doing this or are we not? Right? Because we're still just staying in the middle, and I feel like that's just been a recurring theme. It's like let's get aggressive. Like at this point,
the less aggressive but still potential is stuff like, let me opt in, like let every single player opt in to resetting 2 of their roles SRs.
super soft, like 35 or something like that. You didn't have to beat in plat because they don't want us down in plat, right?
No, but okay, but reminder, things below diamond have performance-based SR.
Mhm.
And then you climb back up quickly, which frankly, every role should still have performance-based R, but I digress. But that, like, if we still had role-based as like performance-based SR, a full reset of 2 of your roles is completely viable. And I would quickly get back up to where I think I should be on each of those roles. But instead, I have 5 accounts. And, like, I shouldn't have to. And we're just at a point where, like, these are for the positive reasons. Players who recognize that they want to be able to play without throwing because they're not at their appropriate rating. Those are the positive reasons. The negative reasons as well is, like for streamer mode, we don't fucking have streamer mode. We wait, how many of you 3, how many of you were for the last creator meeting?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think it's just
Okay,
I
so
think
Sty,
Sty wasn't there,
know.
but
No, I was in
Okay.
bed.
I think I sort of semi filled you. But
Yeah.
It's those are one. It's one of those areas that's lacking. But what would you guys say? Because I can already see people in chat, and I knew this was going to come. People say, "Well, you know why they don't punish old accounts? Because it's the Bucks."
money.
Sty,
Oh,
what
right.
do
Yes,
you
it's-
respond to that?
Money talks.
I mean, that,
Sam, you feel that's true? You feel like they're
I
not
mean,
yeah,
console,
incentivized?
that's already
Yeah.
stupid. Console, you can make as many
Console's
as you want
horrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
for
You can
free.
can make
So
alts
it's not
for
a money
free.
issue. Yeah.
No.
And like they could
Uh,
very easily tie. I'm pretty sure on console, besides physical discs, but like for the download versions, they could tie the purchase to the individual account on the individual like email level account for that console, right? They could do that. But
I'm
as
not
far
even
as,
sure why they allow it. I have no idea why they allow you to make endless profiles on console. Anyway,
It's
does anyone know?
it's a Microsoft issue. It's not a Blizzard issue.
no.
Microsoft
on
own them
console,
now. They
you
need
know,
to.
they-
It's the same issue now.
You tell me, man. I mean, I don't know. It's sad, but
No, but let me throw this question.
Well,
to you
what
guys.
about a family though? Like, what if you had kids?
You buy a
or
bloody
a
Xbox
brother?
each?
yeah,
Come on.
No, true. Yeah. Okay. So that. Yeah.
yeah. SVB. How often do you think it's used like that?
Well, but it's often enough. I mean,
No.
someone,
I mean, I would say
someone's,
very often.
Yeah,
someone's
Not
gonna
maybe
be
not
upset.
every
I
often
I have a lot of
per
people
game.
who come to my
And
chat and they say they
limited to
play.
2. Limited to 2 or 3. And you know what? If for example, there's a guy in my chat named Caleb, and he's a 45-year-old software engineer, and his sons are 8 and 12, and one of them is already masters. And he comes to my stream. He has them watch my stream all day. I said, please don't make them grow up to be better than me and not me. Okay. First of all, it's just, I was like, are you sure you want that? He was like, yeah, they need to learn the real world first. And I was like, oh God. And I was like, okay. I literally said, kids, be better. But no, like he said that like when they were first learning, like they would just kind of like have to share an account, like go through the learning process and stuff. And you know, so I do see that as being a thing, but like, look, I know account sharing is against the rules, but you really think Blizzard's going to complain that an 8-year-old kid and a 12-year-old kid are learning the game together on Xbox? Like,
Yeah.
no, they're not.
I mean, I'd argue this entire conversation goes out the window if the game goes free to play and you pay for competitive.
Yeah.
true.
I mean, maybe slightly, but yeah.
Yeah.
Or the phone verification, phone verification for comp.
Well, again, like I said, though, does that it will upset people, right? There, because I know people will be like, well, I don't want to do that. So are we saying, or are you saying, EeveeA or Sam or Sty, that there has to be a cost, and that's an acceptable cost, like quite literally. But
gain
you know,
more than you
some
lose.
people will be left
You actually
by
get
the
the competitive
wayside.
people that all quit. They all quit because it wasn't competitive. So you'll get them. Right. But again, it's a big equation of where you need to get the good content drop. You need the good PR. You need to convince people to come back after they feel like they've been let down. You need to choose your identity. That's
They
like
will.
steps.
Like,
yeah. And they will.
There
You're
is
right, I
no
agree.
doubt in my mind that whenever new content comes out, whenever we get Overwatch 2 or whatever the hell happens, there will be a massive fuck off marketing blitz. You'll get animated shorts coming back. You'll get all kinds of
Oh,
stuff.
I'm gonna cry,
People will be
dude.
like,
I will
holy
actually
shit, and they'll
cry
come back.
watching that. I actually
they'll
will
be-
cry.
There's no
That's
issue
gonna be
with that.
embarrassing.
The issue is how long the players are retained after.
Yeah, that's
The
always
initial
been the problem.
launch.
And if we choose an identity and be like, hey, you want a steak? Walk over here. If you want your McNuggets or Taco Bell, go over here. Simple,
It-
easy peasy.
I
lemon
have
squeezy.
to I have to admit this is the time where it's like we're hitting the point in the conversation where
Yeah, my brain is fried. I'm not gonna
well
lie.
Hang
no
on.
no no well I was gonna say I have so much more to say, but we're hitting the point of the conversation where under NDA I can't say what I'm thinking.
But let me ask you guys this question: how many of you have done the whole let's stream a new account and get it to GM or whatever?
Oh, like yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
interestingly enough, when I had my first account, the EeveeA account,
Yeah.
and then people were like, "Oh, you can't. You're only here because you got here." Blah blah blah. I was like, "Fine, I'll do it a second time." EVB, and
Yeah.
then EVC was when I did a bronze to GM or bronze to top 500
Yeah.
rather, and that was actually when the community manager at the time was like DMing me like, "Hey, please don't do this," and I was like, I was also thrown off because it was from the official Play Overwatch account, which okay, all right. But it was that step forward of being like, yeah, so don't do bronze to GM, but you can complete your current one because I mean you're already ongoing. But like I did that at the time because especially because people often don't remember this, but Mercy mentality was that you cannot climb without duoing with somebody. As Mercy, you are only going to be able to. You have no influence over whether or not you win a match, which is such a bullshit mentality for anyway. So basically, that's why I did EVC to prove to others, no matter your rank, your skill can outweigh no matter your situation, right? And so,
We,
all these different accounts because of very just different reasons. But then I have a DPS account because I can't play DPS on my main because my MMR thinks I'm 4.2k, even though when I'm warmed up, my DPS is like still 3.7, 3.8. But, of course, again, though, that goes back to streamer mode. EVAs on DPS, we lose. All these different intertwined of like, I wouldn't need any of these extra accounts at this point if we had streamer mode and an MMR reset across roles. That's it.
I think like I've got a similar example to that as well. I was getting a lot of flack for, oh my god, you've been carried, you've been this and that, and I'm like, hold on, I've carried myself. How is this possible? So
Yep.
that's how I got my second account, I guess, which was called Spitfire, and I'm like, no, I'll show you guys, I can do this, and I think I was playing Soldier at the time, just one trick Soldier, got to about 4.1 ish, and I was like, there you go, made it a whole video series, and like, look, I can get to it. It was like a personal thing for me.
Yeah,
But the point I was going after is, with like you guys doing the whole bronze to GM thing, and a ton of people have done this, there's two reasons for this. The first one is there isn't enough going on in the game to actually make content that's enjoyable, so you're forced to do it. The second part to this is, as you're going through, okay, you do have the adaptive SR up to a certain point, so you are rapidly kind of climbing through the ranks. You are annihilating people's games, whether you agree to it or not. Your skill level is insanely higher, even if you're playing an off role. You're in voice comms, you're going, guys, this is how we're going to take this fight. Nobody does that at those ranks. And so it's wrecking the game in a lot of ways. This is probably why, Evie, whoever the hell that was DMing you over the Overwatch accounts is probably like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this because you're wrecking the game kind of thing. But on the other side of this, what else is supposed to be done for content? And it is still a legitimate thing you can do in the game. Now, there's a lot of different ways of looking at Smurfs as well. When you start looking at Smurfs who are like, you've got multiple accounts and you're all playing at the same level, and you're doing certain things on your Smurf accounts because you know it would be considered in bad taste on your main account. That's a completely different way of looking at it
I
again.
will quickly note one of the caveats as well is like I was so adamant making sure that there was no criticism.
Yeah.
Is I queued with 5 other people to place
Oh.
bronze, and so it's not even like I threw matches to get there. But if we're being objective, I am making dozens of matches more miserable from being a player much higher skilled
Yeah.
relative to that rank, right? So there's still nuances to why that's not ideal.
Can I make you guys laugh real quick?
Sure.
So first of all, I think our phrasing is important because there's a big difference between an unranked GM and a bronze GM, and that's why they started banning the bronze GMs because there was no.
Yeah, I'm talking unranked. Yeah.
So I actually recorded one recently, and I rendered it last night. And speaking of us destroying matches, I unironically on damage played out of my mind, placed 2100.
No,
I lost my
way.
last 3 games. my Junkrat literally goes, "Is that Samito?" And I go, "Dude, like, what's up, man?" And he's like, "I'm sorry, I am so high right now." And I'm like, and you hear me. And then like I had a tweet exchange. I tweeted this guy a rant video. I was like, dude, like he was like, "You didn't have to flame me. You could have told me." I was like, dude, like I didn't flame you. Like you just need to get off social media for the night, my friend. You have a good night. In fact, just unironically, 2150. And I was like, you can hear it in my voice. I'm just like, there's just no way. And then I had to try hard like the next couple games. And like people were like upset. I was typing them like, I am so sorry. Like, because in mine, like I try as hard as I can to place diamond. So like I get real games. Like, I kid you not. Like, because there was only a 5-game sample size now. If like 3 of those games, which these just happen to be, where you just get like the kids arguing, like you. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there on damage. I'm like, there's actually nothing. I'm explaining to him, like, sorry guys, like there's just, you just gotta play to win the next one. So that's a funny little note about that. That was like literally last week. So
I mean, funny enough, on EeveeB, the one that I did unranked, back to normal, I think I placed 3760, which for season 3,
win streaks.
The win streaks.
Yeah.
Bring them back.
Win streaks and performance-based SR.
Yeah.
Well, while we're sharing these war stories, I always share my chat will notice, but I always share the classic story, which is my main SCB account had literally never played a single minute of DPS before roll queue, and I was GM back in those days. And for like 15 seasons after roll queue, I never played DPS. I never played a single game.
I know where this is going.
Never placed. And then for the first time, like season 28, I placed for the first time my DPS 3800.
Yeah.
The game was like, and this is when the 3900 was the cap. So the game was like, you're 100 below where the max is. You've never played a single minute of DPS before this. Go ahead, because of your off-roll SR. So while we're sharing the war stories on that, but bringing back to the whole Smurf ult thing, and I know I've taken a lot of you guys' time, so I do want to start wrapping up, because I know our brains are getting frazzled. 3 hours of ranting about Overwatch. But are we saying then the best solutions are the ones that will alienate some people but will make the competitive integrity, the keyword, better? So stuff like SMS and paying
will alienate people. You should always be pursuing the best solution. If it doesn't fit for people who, well, they want to play comp, well then why do you want to play comp? Well, it's not quick play. Play the fucking quick play. I don't fucking care. If you're not trying to improve and play as a team, then that comp's not for you. At the end of the day, that's what it is. That is fundamentally what comp is supposed to be. It will inevitably alienate people, and that's okay. It's not like you're alienating people from the entire game. You're alienating people from a mode.
Side, do you agree?
Yeah, totally. Like it's a game with many faces, isn't it, Overwatch? And it doesn't really, it's almost like its competitive faces. It's most, in a lot of ways, it's almost like that isn't the game how it's designed to be played, although it is, because we all know when you play in an organized environment, it is incredibly good. Comp never has ever hit those heights of organization. You know, I remember years back in 2016, there was an ESL like open back when you could actually host Overwatch competitions before Overwatch League ruined everything. There was an open division style competition through ESL, and a bunch of us got together. We played in that, and we got to the semi-final. And now this was really good for a European tournament. This was incredible. That to me is the peak of me playing Overwatch. I had the most excitement there. And then when I look back at the other things where, okay, the first World Cup when they stupidly allowed content creators to get voted into teams, which was hilarious. But like that was fun to be part of as well. Obviously not fun to get destroyed, but it's fun to be part of a team. It's fun to see the way the game should be played, where you see people take roles, and that you've got your in-game leaders, you've got all the shout. It's just great. Like people don't experience that game of Overwatch. So Overwatch just suffers from this. It's multifaceted, and it's got this issue of what is Overwatch to you? Well, to us, it's a competitive game. To most people, it's I'm just going to play total mayhem. It blew my mind.
Good
and
mode.
This was at a BlizzCon a while ago, and I was talking to one of the developers, and they're like, "I only play total mayhem." I thought they were joking. I was like, "Seriously?" They're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "What?" Because in my head, Overwatch was competitive. But then I started thinking, well, actually, no, it's not, is it? It's all these other game modes. Like there's probably people out there that just play free for all nonstop. if they like Cassidy or Roadhog.
Mystery
Like,
Heroes. That's why it's always there.
yeah,
People
mystery.
love.
But Mystery Heroes is fun. You go and play it for a couple of games. It is fun to play. So I don't know. Overwatch always suffers with this issue of it's a fun game. It was designed to be fun, flashy, over the top, and it hits those bars. It's great for that. But then when you're trying to play in a team environment, it becomes very difficult for the game to push players to work together. And I don't know how they fix that, but I think 5v5 does help a little bit with that because you're reducing the number of players.
Can I say, I want to hear from Sam here, and I want you to be more on point about this, because I think we talked about so many different aspects that are like kind of more grander issues, but let's be pointed here. One tricks, actual one tricks, not the under the definition of incapable of playing or unwilling to play other things. What's the situation? How do you deal with them?
Comp bans, temp comp bans, till they change.
Temp
Because here's the
comp
thing.
bans
Here's the
for-
like,
Like,
because like time frame wise.
Here. How do you define? Okay, so let's change it up, because somebody might be just adamant that, hey, I believe this is the right pick for the situation, and somebody else might perceive that as, oh, you're being a one trick. How do you start to determine?
You have to have a
true one
very
trick.
large sample size, because
Okay.
situations like that are fine, and that
So then
person
are you-
should not get
so-
banned. It should only be, again, like the main reason and the only time that I would want that to happen is when it's like very blatant. Like I'm talking 20 plus hours a season.
I'm
Only
gonna
one
be
hero
real
the
and
whole
blunt
time.
with you. That doesn't that's not a solution, because you as an individual
Mm-hmm.
are like, yeah, I don't want a one trick in my game, right? However, if you're real on an individual basis, you will always still have one tricks. It's just that some one tricks are going to be punished.
Well, yeah.
It's-
What
again,
about the
it's-
one
it's-
tricks who are
it's-
meta
it's-
one tricks, right? What about Brig one tricking if she's the
indiscriminate.
best pick?
No,
Indiscriminate.
but Sam, listen.
But what if she's the
What I'm
best pick
saying-
I'm not
in
saying
all
it's going to solve
situations?
ranked. The
No,
whole
no, no.
point of it was,
You're misunderstanding
again,
my point.
perception.
It's
Okay.
you're misunderstanding the point. The point is, if you have thousands of people who are one tricking, and it takes that long before a punishment happens, maybe 200 out of 1,000 of them are banned, but you still have 800 one tricks that you might be dealing with. So I'm saying is, you will not, as an individual player on the receiving end, will not, under a system like that, would not feel the difference.
I'm curious. The main reason that I'd like to try it is to see how much it would change player perception, because if player perception changes,
that's-
that number could go down even more. And again, like I'm
Okay,
not
I
sure
see
how
that.
much
I
it works.
see
I'm
that.
not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, it's going to work. It's going to get like, no, of course not, right? And nor do I want Overwatch to be the kind of game, and it's at least where we're cracking hard down on everyone. Like I do think there's ways to do that. I would prefer a group queue, because that was where I was trying to go with
Yeah,
that tweet,
that
where like
makes
this
sense.
is what the atmosphere we want to create is, and it's all these little things are minor perception things to try to get people to that. Do I want to sit down and go one by everyone's profile and say, oh, you look like a one trick, you're bad? No, like no, of course not, right?
What
That's-
happens though,
that's-
Sam, if you get the one trick, let's say it's a Bastion one trick, joins your game, and then you get a nice little pop-up that says, hello, Samito. Congratulations, you have a one trick on your team. They have 99.9% playtime on a certain hero that they have selected. We will give you 100% plus SR if you win this game. Well then, you're like, okay, let's build the team around this player. What do you do then?
Okay.
See,
Give
me,
them
I feel like I'm a
bonuses
bad
working
example.
with
See,
them.
you're onto something. I feel like a lot of people would be into that. But me as someone who's like, I've kind of achieved my goals with SR, so like I don't care about SR anymore.
It's a
I care more about
crackhead
what-
Forget
idea.
SR.
It's a crackhead
some sort of
idea.
a reward system. You get a reward for dealing with them. It would
That's a
be
real-
easily
that's a
abusable because
really,
you could.
really interesting.
Actually, okay. Let's put it.
idea.
Let's put it a more realistic spin. What if, based on the matchmaker's determination on how likely are you to win a match, what if one tricks were just determining that you are less likely to win the match because of this person's limited hero pool? And so then it's the same idea of you are punished less for the loss because it was like, oh, you had less likely to win anyway, or you are benefited from the win because the matchmaker could determine the likelihood of the win as a factor of how wide players' hero pools are. That's probably a much more likely instead of a
Possibly,
some-
but the problem with all of this, it is very easily abusable. The moment you give a player some sort of system they can abuse. So if I have a one trick account and we're going to play with the one trick account just to inflate our rewards in whatever they turn out to be, then it is quite easily abusable. I just thought it would be an interesting point to bring up because everybody is always negative about one tricks. Universally, I've got a one trick on my team, we're going to lose unless it's a meta one trick.
is one tricks going to be more or less painful in Overwatch 2?
Well, this is the whole theory craft debate, because people are on both sides of the fence of whether tanking will be better in Overwatch 2 with only one tank versus two tanks. And some people are like, well, the added pressure will be worse, and other people are like, no, it should be better.
I think Overwatch 2 is going to have a much shorter honeymoon period than Overwatch did. So there will be, the meta will just be who the hell knows what this meta is to begin with.
I mean, we're going to get speculation, but we're going to get like 4 heroes or more at Overwatch.
Yeah, but the majority of the player base is already kind of familiar with the way most of the heroes work, even though they're being reworked. You kind of still kind of understand. So you've got the fundamentals there for building team comps. You would kind of imagine. Whereas when the game launched, there was none of that. So for quite an extended period of time, everything was almost viable, which you could say is like the ideal state of Overwatch. It probably is in the developers' eyes, where every hero, every team comp, everything is viable. I mean, that's never going to happen, right? Overwatch 2 comes out, we're probably going to get a sort of microcosm of that again, where it will just be totally in flux for a while. But I don't think it will be as long as it was for Overwatch 1. And then we will start settling back into these are the meta heroes. One-tricking probably will still be as effective as it is, simply because if you spend more time becoming proficient with one hero than spreading your time out, well, you're more laser focused, right? You know what to do. Overwatch is a complex game. Your Overwatch brain for that specific hero is much more calibrated and trained. So you are going to win more games with that hero, irregardless of what hero it is.
I also think Overwatch 2 is trying to take emphasis away from like the team death ball-y nature of what
Yeah,
Overwatch 1 is a lot.
Yeah.
So if you're not required to be so in sync with your team in Overwatch 2, one person on their own thing should in theory have less of an impact too, right?
Well, and have more of an impact, you would think.
Well, more of a detrimental impact, so I should say. It shouldn't throw your game, because a lot of what happens, I think the reason the frustration comes in for one tricking is that there are certain scenarios where it's like it only, and I think the reason that high-end streamers complain about this a lot more than your average metal rank player, even though metal rank people hate it too, is that it only really matters when the game is being played optimally, because it only matters if they're playing the right comp and you're not.
The margin for error too at high level plays is very different. Can I comment on Sty's point real quick, because that was really interesting. I had to think about that for a minute. It's also, see, what you said, I think is also, it might be a generalist solution for like a lot of the metal ranks. And I think you're onto something too, because both attack player perception. So I actually would probably rather go with that, as long as you made it non-abusable, because it's positive affirmation instead of negative affirmation. And if we're trying to attack from the perception angle, on paper, positive affirmation would be better. Now, what I would say though, and this is why I might personally be a bad example. And again, no system's perfect. So like for me, it really wouldn't apply, because what I care about is I want the core fundamentals of the true experience of Overwatch as someone who's been in that scrim environment. However, I think for a generalist population, that actually might be an efficient way and a very viable solution that should be discussed. Because if it's all perception, is the glass half empty or half full? Obviously, we want half full, because that's a better way to think. So I have to think about that more. That's a really interesting concept that I haven't really thought about. So, I, have to think about it. But for me personally, no, because it doesn't address like the core issue of like what I would prefer is like an option to queue into the true Overwatch experience that I had the chance of tasting once, and I'm trying to get back to the promised land. But, very interesting point, though. I hadn't really thought of that, so it's pretty smart.
I mean, I'm going to be blunt and say I still think it's an absolute crackhead idea, but I mean,
well, it's better. It's like it's on the table. If bans are on the table, then that also should be on the table. Like they should be, But I get it. It was just interesting.
It's too easily abusable. But the point was like, what happens if it suddenly becomes positive that you've got a one trick on your team?
Or it's like you up the degree of difficulty and you get like risk reward. We'll weigh that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept. I think it's cool to discuss.
It's like Overwatch New Game Plus, because you've got a Bastion one trick. So try and do something with this, right? And you might get a reward, but you'll get less of a punishment if you lose. I don't know. I think it's too easily abusable though. To ever work.
The biggest example of the perception angle is, I have people who who've known me for years, right? There are some people who view me and be like, "Oh, we got EeveeA. This is a free win." But then you also have people who think this is EeveeA. I'm sitting in spawn, right? There's a huge gap of people's perception to see it as the positive or negative, and that you're right. Trying to find a way to spin it is definitely beneficial. But I think Ski was mentioning as well of how it's so player perception that even when you're objectively not a one trick anymore, which is why it's so important to, especially in a conversation like this where people are listening, where Sam's nuance of elaboration at the beginning of the difference between a one trick of someone incapable or unwilling to swap when the rest of the team in order to coordinate and work with the team. If you're not willing to swap what the entire team would like to work with, then if because of your one trick, then that is the issue. Rather than somebody who specializes and works with the team, and at this point, like if we're talking about me 3 years ago, yeah, I was still one trick. But at this point, I'm a relatively very flexible player overall.
Seen the Ana. I've gotten those nanos. I know. I
Yeah,
saw
like
that jib game. Yeah.
my Ana is at a point where fully capable, but people still see, we got so and so not on their main hero, and that creates a negative instant connotation, right? And I'm going to argue and say a huge amount of this is just because the Overwatch player base are just piss babies that are not mature human beings yet.
That's just the internet.
I mean, I would argue still
thing-
no, but because I just think that there's so many players that just lack the understanding that let me put it this way: you can tell they don't pay bills. That's the way I would put it. You can tell they don't pay their bills.
Well, here's one thing I want to throw into the whole one trick mix. I should have been trying to solve this and brought us to conclusion, but I'm going to go chaos mode and make it even more complicated, which is that, okay, you can say, well, someone should be willing to compromise and swap for their team. But do we really have any reliable way to judge anyone's hero SR accurately in any given situation in Overwatch, considering how many variables there are in terms of like the map, the team comp that your teammates are picking, how you feel that fucking day, like all these factors. Like, again, it's like, let's say you're a 4.2k Reinhardt player and your team is like, we don't want Reinhardt here, we want Hog. And your Hog it doesn't have to be that your Hog is unplayable and it's bronze level. It could be that your Hog is 3.8k. Right? It's almost there, but it's not there. You've already now potentially influenced the matchmaker by 400 SR because you're playing a different hero. Now, the other thing is you actually don't play Hog on this map a lot. And now you're going on Hog and you're actually not sure where the right positions are to play Hog. So it's like, actually, when we break down the whole one-trick argument and I definitely understand 100% where Sam is coming from, where Sam is talking a lot about the mentality going into the player, trying to play with your team. But in terms of actual performance, the problem that I know a lot of one-trick players say is that, well, I'm being targeted not necessarily because of my performance, but because of, again, perception. The perception that my hero is underperforming.
If there was a scoreboard and they could clearly see the one trick is absolutely killing it in the game, they would not care.
But again, it's like, what is a relevant stat, right? And I think this is another important part is like, what is a relevant stat to know? Because is it though? What if I'm playing Reinhardt and my shielding is a complete garbage?
So Reinhardt is always the cheesy answer to this question because.
But anybody, Orisa, or what if my target focus on Tracer is bad?
Yeah, anything that relies on generating space cannot be quantified in the game. That's always going to be an issue.
But even more other, like, again, if it's like, what am I targeting as a hit scan? If I'm targeting their Hog for damage medals, is that better than targeting the Pharah in the sky destroying my team? Or if I'm Tracer and their Tracer's wrecking my backline and I actually shut her down and mark her, that's huge value compared to like just going and farming pulse bombs and sticking them on the Orisa, right? Like, the problem with Overwatch is it's so complicated that the right answer is not quantifiable.
No.
This is where I sympathize with the devs.
They would point in a direction.
Right? Not always. It's almost very few times is it quantifiable. However, and this is why when I was trying to make my point earlier about how I would go about it, again, it's not ideal. It's not the best thing that I want. But that's why the sample size would have to be huge. Because if you're going with the same answer, like, for example, would you say someone's trying on a test? This is a bad example because this is actually not my mind.
You should go back to the food and the steak.
Yeah.
No, don't.
I need to
I'm already hungry.
I'm going to go eat my Taco Bell, and that God knows that I'm going to regret that later. Sorry, Taco Bell. You're not McDonald's. Just like if the sample size is that large, there's eventually time if you're picking the same answer every single time, the sample size is that large, there are clearly times where you are just too stubborn to help the environment of your team. If it's large enough, right? Can you pick and choose the individual situations? No, but that's why when I said that the sample size must be large, it can't be like 10 hours, maybe not even 20, right? But it's when you get even with the scoreboard, like it's very hard to actually tell, right? In a solo queue environment. But that's again, like if there's a team play like Clockwork Vendetta, right? If everyone's okay with it, then like go win, right? And there's no problem at all. So it's again, there's no perfect
but the
solution.
Scoreboard, so the
It
thing
would
is,
help.
like, with
It
that,
would help. You're right.
yeah. So if you've got an Ashe and Ashe has got 60 eliminations in the game, my Ashe is playing quite well. That's a given, right?
Can I
If it
just
was just
pause and
pure
say
damage,
eliminations versus final blows is something Overwatch players seem to not fucking understand.
yeah. And
Doomfist,
that goes into
Zero.
SVB, like effective eliminations as well. Are we targeting the right heroes? All of that, it becomes very difficult. But it's just a little bit more
Yeah.
information, a little bit
Yeah.
more to help you. Because you could have the Hog, and Hog's running around and he's got tons of eliminations, he's doing loads of damage, and you're like, okay, he's a one-trick Hog. Obviously, he's doing something, he's not throwing the game. These are stats that are helping us a little bit, right? Whereas he's not just clowning about. I don't know. But again, it's always an impossible thing to show.
100%.
And that granular detail.
No, I 100% agree with you. Like, it's incumbent on me sometimes to be a little bit facetious as the host of the podcast. But I agree with you. Like, it wouldn't. It's that because better stats cannot be a worse thing in my opinion, right? Like, even if they're
right?
Well, they can.
They can,
because like I love.
Do you remember when damage? Do you remember when your damage stats, when you damage shields and barriers?
Oh yeah,
you actually got damage.
Oh,
so you
I
could just
remember
sit there railing the barriers all day, going, "I've done 10,000."
I mean, I would argue. I'm dead
damage in the game.
I would argue adding barriers back to damage done would encourage the monkey brain of the average DPS player to actually fucking shoot shields.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Because all it is a number base. Why not? Why the fuck not?
How can you?
But again, it's like some situations shooting the shield is the right play, and some situations not shooting the shield is not the right play.
No. I just love how, because this is just like the classic game development like thought process where it's like, how can we? And this is what I think is so interesting about game design, and this is why I think Overwatch can improve a lot. How can you, as a creator, and in this case, a game dev, cater your game to like put all the signs in front of the player to lead them in the right direction to learn and be healthy. This is something we struggle with on Mindplex a lot, right? Because it was Minecraft and they were super limited. Like we were super limited with what we could actually do as a network. But like Blizzard, like it's almost like it's just the chessboard is so big. It's just interesting to talk about and just look at. I just made that comment. I just thought that was cool.
No,
Overwatch is a wonderful game for this very reason. Yeah. And I just want to bring up, because I know my man Frito's out here, I want to bring up his favorite stat.
Oh God.
The healing received, right? Or like stuff like a stat like that. I think
for tanks,
so
that would be a huge stat.
Because that is so telling.
Support ults as tanks, like living and surviving to get your support ults is the most, especially with Bat being good, like building windows fast, like easy, the fastest building win con in the game right now. He was Coalescence, but now he's just better. So that would actually be really useful.
Of like, I've talked with Jeff Good, especially in the early days of Overwatch. I was DMing Jeff Goodman. All of these kinds of mercy suggestions, all these kind of nuanced, smaller things that would be like, hey, this would be meaningful. People would appreciate this, blah, blah, blah. One of the most pointed things that always got me is telling him, hey, I would love to know how much damage I've boosted. That would be a lovely stat to know. And he's like, that feels useless. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, that doesn't seem like that important of a stat. I'm like, the fuck are you on about? That's half my kit.
And I can guarantee you the game is tracking that as well. They track everything.
So they'll be tracking this. Everything.
Well, this is why you have scrim codes, right? In the scrim codes, you see all these numbers, right? And for everyone all the time, like ults used, number of ults used, like damage, kills, and blah, blah, blah.
It's one of those things where it's like, also, to the average player, respect the developer as a human being, but I can call their opinions fucking dog shit all day. And I'm going to be honest, Jeff, cool dude, good developer, so many dog shit opinions, I'm going to be honest. And like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's so many things that could be done better to improve. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, Mercy has the most unique hero-specific settings because she's actually an incredibly fucking nuanced character. The fact that we got this cool change recently with being able to prioritize beam versus looking at target, cool. But we've been asking for 6 years, give us separate keybind for flying to target and a separate keybind for flying to beam. That way it's more intuitive of like, I know what I'm fucking doing. I know what I'm fucking pressing. But instead, ironically enough, this setting is cool. I can't even use it because it actually negatively impacts my playstyle. And so like that kind of stuff of like, these nuance, like respecting hero nuance is something that I just feel like kind of just goes under the radar where it's always like, well, damage number, or what does this do? What does that do? What is the actual player nuance of what does people who play this hero care about? And I think that actually I would say a more fundamental thing even than that is like, we've lost the plot when it comes to hero design. Hero design originally was, is it a fun hero, and then make it balanced. Instead, it's balance and then let's try and make it fun. And you can tell the heroes that are not as fun as they should be because of just the overly caring about balance. You like the priority should always be make the hero fucking addictively fun, and then try and make it balanced inside the ecosystem, frankly. And that's the kind of thing that like
Can I ask you a
makes-
question?
Sure.
Define fun. Because earlier when we defined fun,
I mean, I would argue
we would say pop
nobody-
off moments, correct? Or would you say
Here's the thing: most people would argue Mercy's not fucking fun, and I can see many reasons
I
why.
actually
right?
enjoy playing Mercy. After you learn the spacing of the game, like I've been playing, like you said, like I almost flew into a minefield last week, but other than that, like so in your case, like could you? I'm sorry to kind of cut you off.
No,
but
you're good.
define.
No, let
fun,
me
'cause-
say, I think I Mercy's fine. I love Mercy's mobility. But what makes Mercy unfun to me is she doesn't have any kind of emergency intervention ability, let's say. She's not like Anna, where I can yeet a nade in and suddenly I've got massive increased healing and I'm pumping heals like
Well,
crazy.
that would be
I've
pop
just
off
slept
moment that
someone.
Sam's talking about. right?
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pop-off moments on supports. You don't have that on Mercy. And the ultimate feels
Have you
very...
Valve
I
pulled
think-
out your Glock?
Yeah, no, there
Mercy
are, but like
excels
it's
from
that
feeling
like
like you are
explosive,
having impact. It's not about the pop off moment as much, I would argue, with Mercy. Like knowing and appreciating the nuanced impact you're having. Like say I can swap my beam 5 times in 2 seconds, and I know I did a specific thing in each time.
Yeah.
Like if I saw one of my teammates, they're 120 HP ish, and I'm like, all right, I need to give them 10 more HP so they don't die to one Junkrat shot. And then I immediately swap over to the other person of like, hey, they're kind of dealing with a 1v1 situation. I just damage boost them for 2 of their bullets, and I know they're going to win that 1v1 now. And I can go to the next person. Knowing that moment-to-moment impact and those kinds of decision-making is what I feel like has so much impact on what makes Mercy enjoyable.
Well, I think,
is-
Evie, you're obviously highly intelligent and I'm an absolute idiot. So to me, these little moments of like building little, like you're gaining advantage, you're doing it's like,
You're dictating
it's
the fight.
so complex. It just isn't flashy.
It's
And I
not.
think
And-
sometimes
yeah.
But that
that's the
speaks to
problem.
what Sam's question was. What is fun?
Yeah.
It's
I
different
think
for every
balance of
person.
both, because
I
what she's
would
describing-
argue, isn't this the entire point of Overwatch though? There's
Yes.
different types of fun per character.
But do you know what the one thing that tramples on both of the funs that you're talking about?
What?
AoE shutdown healing and abilities that are designed to debuff rather than enable.
I mean, I argued from here to Kingdom Come about the first 2 characters you add. One denies healing, one denies abilities. Those are the first 2 characters you decide to add to your game. Says a lot about your plan for the future of your heroes.
I will say, I don't
We
feel
already
like
know they're reducing stuns. We already know that's happening for Overwatch 2, so they know.
Yes.
Like again, I think a lot of this just
But
comes back
anti-nade's not
to
being addressed. Why is a fucking Zarya bubble the only counter to anti-nade in this fucking video game?
maybe it
Mortality
isn't in
field.
Overwatch 2. This is like my ultimate get out for all of these questions. It might
well,
not be.
Overwatch 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
because
I do think it would be
3,
great to
4
have more
years of-
cleanses in Overwatch
Well,
2.
yeah, true.
But
That is
the
I mean,
fact
Jeff
is, there's been
said,
so much development on the game that we have just not seen, and we won't see.
mean-
I guess
for
we'll have to wait
God
and
knows
find
how
out.
long.
I guess that's kind of our
Yeah,
answer.
yeah,
I
so-
guess for now, for everything, is like we'll have to wait and find out.
I know, but like, are we stupid for giving them the benefit of the doubt?
No,
I
of
don't
course
know.
not. No, I have super high hopes for Overwatch 2 in many ways.
I think
I
you're-
know it's gonna
you're
be great.
definitely right to raise an eyebrow and ask.
No,
me
I'm
the
saying there's fundamental things that I wish that the mindset would change. Whereas I think that we get too caught up in the balance. It's more like make something fucking crazy and fun, and then
So what would you
over
say is
time
your like
balance.
summary then? If Sam said pop off moments, for you, what is the thing that should be prioritized as fun, EVA?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know how to phrase it, considering like I
No,
think
the
every
fight pacing,
hero
you,
has
you dictated the fight pacing. That's what you were talking about a second ago, right? It's
yeah,
like-
effectively, yeah.
yeah.
It's like getting value in creative ways. And like, you could argue Doomfist, even just the fact that like uppercutting the Reinhardt to try and like make your Reinhardt have a shatter play. That's incredibly satisfying gameplay to be able to coordinate that and go for that kind of thing. It's not a
But
super
the other,
fun play.
but the
playing
Reinhardt on the
chess.
other side will say, "Well, what am I supposed to do? I just get uppercut and fucked."
Get bubbled. I don't know. Good luck.
And as
But
well
this is
with
what I
his-
mean, like,
and
'cause
with
people will say-
Steadfast, though, with Steadfast now though, like it's incredibly difficult to time. And either way, I don't think that specific example applies. I mean, there's a couple different things you can do, but I think the main thing is she's talking about the chess of the game.
Yes.
And this is my favorite part of the
Mhm.
game too, where no matter what hero you're on, this is why I'm able to be top 10 combined every season. Not because I'm a mechanically good player anymore. I'm washed. But like the way the tempo, and Jake was talking about this too yesterday or like earlier this week, the tempo of Overwatch, if you can learn how to control the game flow, you can do it on Rhine, you can do it on Ana, Mercy, anything. And learning that game flow and being able to control it in tandem with pop-off moments are what make Overwatch the most unique shooter to ever come out. And
For
that's
sure.
why I fell in love with the game. So
I mean,
I might be
if I were
speaking
if I
over
were
you,
to
I'm
say
sorry.
pop off moment, actually, I do have a good example. I go for stupid reses on Mercy all the time. If that res, I'm like, there's a 2% chance I live. But if we have this person in that fight, fuck it, I'm going for it, right? You know, those kinds of like suicidal-esque reses are very satisfying. I will say that. You know, that's kind of a pop. You know, actually, in really early times, my friends would always say, "How are you live? How are you live?" I would always be like 20 HP. Like you've played against my Mercy, you know how annoying it is to kill the fucking moth that is me, many times.
I think if I could surprise, because I got Boger in chat here pointing out a good relevant example where he's talking about the flashbang shatter interaction. So I think this is where it's different, because I would say the Doomfist uppercut is not as fun, quote unquote, as the flashbang shatter, because as
I was
Boger
saying
pointed out,
fun, but it's
What's outplayable?
satisfying.
because what Boger pointed
Satisfying
out is like
part
you
of the
can
fun.
respond as the Reinhardt to the potential of the flashbang. I think what's frustrating for players is when they get the feeling like I can't do anything. I know Sam talks about this a lot, where it's like I'm going in to do something and then he drops E and it's like, well, now you can't do anything anymore,
It's
right? With the immortality.
It's
Right, so I think
right.
when you have the potential to respond to what's happening in front of you, it feels a bit more engaging. Whereas when you're like, autonomy has been taken away from me as the player, and now this is just happening to me, upon me.
Which is why stuns are being reduced in Overwatch 2, and it's a good start position for that. Obviously, Lamp needs to be sorted out because
what's the argument here about balance based upon purely perception versus the actual balance?
Real
Because
quick,
we've already touched on that a little bit, but
I kind of have to go to the airport and pick up my friend.
Yeah.
So you guys can discuss this. I do have to get. First of all, thanks. This might be the best episode we've had. Like that was some of the most productive, like thoughtful. Like my head feels like a pretzel right now. I feel like I've just been like in my head. I can't even explain it. Like put us on a Raisin Bran ad for wrinkly brains. But like that was awesome. So thank you guys for having. That was a wonderful conversation.
Quick, as we always do, Sam. I want your concluding thoughts. So give me one quick most thing that ruins competitive integrity in your solution.
The philosophy of Blizzard to never commit to a certain ideology and actually implement features in formatting to encourage the true experience and deliver the average consumer what really is peak Overwatch, because I think that every single person and their mother will fall in love with it and it will be the golden era of the game.
Exactly what Sam said. I think it's a damn shame that such a small amount of the player base has actually experienced playing together in a team that's functioning together. It's such a shame.
It's out of this world. It'd be like you could play Little League baseball or whatever European football. I know it's a big thing. I'm not calling it soccer. All right,
European
football.
I didn't say it.
That's a new one.
I did not say. I knew better. I knew better. Come on, give me some slack.
I appreciate you, Sam.
I made the effort. All right, guys.
I appreciate it.
But like it'd be like, because you got like the best time of my life was when I played Little League baseball when I was 12 and we had 3-a-day practices. Like that was. We almost went to the World Series, right? It was amazing, and that's what's so beautiful about gaming.
Sam, how can you have a World Series when only one country plays the sport?
No. They have and literally. Okay, yeah, whatever. Japan is raw. Japan is raw. I don't want to hear it.
Okay, Japan, but
go on. Shohei Ohtani and see what he tells you.
All right, man, go to the fucking airport. Don't
I gotta
let
go. You guys can experience it your whole lives. Goodbye. Eat McDonald's.
Yeah, appreciate it. Well, this is gonna ruin all the overlays, but I appreciate I've taken a lot of your guys' time as well. I don't want to abuse that because you guys are giving me. And now your Sty is Samito now, and I'm half SVB, half Stylosa on the screen.
Nightmare?
But yeah. So I'll take it towards our concluding thoughts as well. As much as I've loved talking to you guys, again, I don't want to abuse your time. So as I asked Sam, I'm gonna ask you guys as well. So Stylosa now dubbed Samito. What's your response? The thing that you think most infringes upon our competitive integrity, and what would you do to change it?
I mean, I just like I said, I wish people had the chance to experience the game in a team. it would be nice if there was, we haven't really spoke about a tournament system in this game and in this
God, yeah.
podcast. I spoke to, man, this was 2017 Gamescom. Spoke to Scott Mercer in length about this, about a tournament system. Wanted to do it, but the amount of work required to put it into the game is astronomical, and it means they can't do other stuff. They can't produce other events. They can't make other game modes and all the other stuff they were working on at the time. So it's not. It's an investment that's going to have like a small impact on the community. What I'm hoping is at some point in the future we do see some form of tournament system, which then can you imagine if you get you just break it down by divisions. If we're using the same ranking system, so you've got your platinum division, and let's say, I don't know, 1,000 platinum tournaments spawn, and you get randomly put into them. There's 10 teams in the tournament. You go for it, but if you win, well, hey, you get a special platinum spray. That is cool. And now it's very similar to getting a top 500 spray, but it's something you've earned. It's something you've had to work towards, crucially, in a team to get. Those are things I'd like to see. I think that would be cool if there was some sort of system like that in the game.
StarCraft 2 has as well, so Blizzard knows this.
Don't even start me on this. StarCraft 2. Yeah, so that's got the. I mean, I originally started YouTube as a StarCraft 2 channel. I thought I could be a caster. I could not be a caster. I was terrible. But like StarCraft 2, even when you go from like Brood War to StarCraft 2, the game was so stripped down. It didn't even have like custom games or anything. It had most of the social features weren't even in the game, and nobody could understand. Well, like, why aren't they in the game? Blizzard, what are you doing? But yeah, that's got a tournament system in it. So you would, maybe on a basic level go, well, they've kind of got this tech. Can't they just stick it in Overwatch? Now I know that's very difficult to do. They're completely
but what I mean is the idea is not unfamiliar to them, right?
No, yeah, they've the precedent is there in the company to do it. But I think it always comes back to the available resources they've got at the time to plow into whatever makes the most sense. And obviously, there's probably been errors in judgment. We actually, one of the Overwatch producers on Twitter said that Bobby Kotick was terrible for coming in and just saying, work on this project. By the way, it's scrapped. I mean, what were these projects? How much time was wasted? Is that why Jeff walked out? Because he just was like, what the hell is going on here? You just don't know. So there's all these issues, all these problems. But, ideally, yeah, a tournament system would cultivate playing together as a team. And it would make great content for me, especially, and for everybody. Everyone would enjoy that. And it would be cool. Like, look at what's happening right now with the experimental creator card. They've got a tournament, haven't they? And I think they've announced it's the second tournament for the creator experimentals, and they've announced it's going to be on the Play Overwatch Twitch channel and Overwatch League on YouTube. This is great. This is cool. This gives them a way of like interacting with the community. It lets players get involved. It lets them form teams. It's a shame Sam's gone, because I think I've seen his tweet yesterday where he's like, hey, is any mutuals out there want to form a team? Well, this is all good. This is even goes back to his point of saying these content creators somewhat lead by example. Well, you're watching him, you might think, okay, he's forming a team. Well, why can't I form a team and take part? They have tried this in the past as well. There was a thing, Flash Ops, it was called.
Flash Ops
when that originally, was a thing, it was supposed to be like these little mini tournaments they were trying to set up, and I think it may have been, I think they tried to do them out of gaming stores or something. It was a bit weird of a concept. It's kind of changed over the years, but they've always kind of known, I think, deep down that they need to. Well, here's the thing, right? Maybe running these tournaments, it's not something you change in the game at a development level. It's something you do with external staff support, with the community managers, with the whoever else is involved, and we're kind of seeing that at the moment, right? It's the second of these tournaments, and it kind of is like a little community tournament, but it would be no substitute for actual in-game tournaments. I think it would give you a reason to play Overwatch, because frankly, right now, I don't have a reason to play Overwatch unless I want to try and get my all-time account high. But why would I try when most people, like you said earlier on, Evie, are not really playing to win? They're just messing about in comp, because it's the death of the game. Well, it's not the death of the game, that's over the top, but it's the end of the game's lifespan. And we do know there's this dangling carrot of Overwatch 2. I
agree. And I do think it would be really helpful, the tier system, because I think the current system, like with the current community tournament, creator tournament, is great, but I notice a lot of people are not going to sign up because you can have 3 AL pros in your team. So it's like, what's the point? You can get shit on. But
wait, sorry, which one?
This
which
creator, this
For the creator
experimental
club.
patch
Oh, yeah.
tournament.
Wait, 3? I thought
Yeah.
I thought it
Well,
was 2.
2 maximum owl and 1 contender. So, well, for the
Oh,
average player,
yeah.
basically, what does it matter whether it's contenders or owl? Like, they're just like,
Yeah,
well,
'cause
I don't
it's-
want to get shit on.
Because
So,
it's communication based too. It's like you got to know people, right? And when it can be anybody's team, it's basically like the people who know pro players and can get a team of that quality. It's like, of course they're gonna win.
well, I mean, to give my example, like I formed a team specifically with people who largely weren't GM. In the end, we ended up getting like Crimzo and Forgiving and stuff. People who are really, really good. But the majority of the team was not GM at the moment, right? And we had a lot of fun practicing. But at the end, we won our first round. But at the end, we lost to Solaris, who won the NA bracket, and they had an Owl Pro, a former Owl Pro, 2 contenders pro, right? So they just like dodged the way around the rules of 3 just by like a former Owl Pro rather than a currently signed Owl Pro. So it was fun, but it was frustrating as well to be like, well, what was the point of that? So I think that when we can have them,
I won't name them, but a couple of my UK World Cup lads, a long time ago, back when you could actually like host events and you didn't need an Overwatch license from Overwatch League and all of that stuff. They used to regularly go around the gaming events in the UK and win themselves quite a few laptops, let's say, in Overwatch competitions and all kinds of stuff. It was like, it would be funny. It'd be like, okay, let's go and win ourselves a laptop. Let's just go and do it. And obviously, you've got a bunch of pro players. Like you can probably work out who these players are. There's not that many who came from the UK, but yeah, it's kind of like a version of that, I guess. But I think
I think that's why you need the limit.
Yeah, you need to be broken down into skill tiers. But like, there's loads of issues with this anyway, and this is something you could just. This could be its own video, its own massive debate. Because how do you?
Because people will be like,
form
"Oh, what about
teams?
smurfing on an alt account?" And
Yeah, how do you keep teams together? Like, how do
Smurfing
you?
tournament? Let's go.
Yeah, if you play the first 2 games in a tournament and then like one of your players doesn't turn up, what do you do then? There's all these considerations. So.
But yeah, the point remains that I think it'd be great, and I look forward to it as a hopeful thing in Overwatch 2, which now brings me to EeveeA. The same question to you. What do you think is the most, upsetting thing for competitive integrity, and what would you do to change it?
I mean, I would say that there's like 4 things, and it's like relatively in order of importance. It's like most important to least important. MMR reset, and or opting into nuking 2 of your roles MMR would be a stopgap solution, but obviously none of this is perfect. Then a phone verification for comp. And then I would argue that the game going free to play would improve the health of the overall pool of players. It's kind of like they all play together, so right. So if there's an MMR reset, free to play, and phone verification, I think that would create a system where that would reduce alt accounts, that would encourage more people in the game, as well as I think that people can focus more. Because we didn't even get to talk about one of the things that made me really upset of the 2-month seasons. I still think that's one of the most dog shit changes in this entire game. No, you're fine. That's on me. I should have remembered. But because think about this, we went from 3 months for 1 numerical value, right? Now we have 2 months for 4 SRs. We have 4 different SRs to pay attention to in 2 months. No one's got time for that. Ain't nobody got full-time streamers don't got time for that. I don't got fucking time for that, right? I don't want to pay attention to my open queue, my DPS SR, my support SR, my tank SR. Like in 2 months, I might have the time to manage like 2 of them at best. But it's just like you're encouraging people to play on different roles, but you're not actually making the fundamental changes that need to be made for that to be not miserable to do, right? For most players, managing 1 SR is a job enough, literally. So it's like the 2-month seasons is just a whole other thing that I just think, not necessarily competitive integrity, but it just feels fucking miserable, right? So just like that's my
That's
spiel.
your 4-point plan. Your 4-point plan.
Yeah.
No, and I agree with all those. I think that's why as well. Like the combined, there's a combined top 500 as well, right? With your 3 roles, it's like
yeah. So like on that super quickly, I think each role should have a different color top 500 icon. So like, I don't know, tank might be a green shiny icon, or support might be a yellow shiny icon. DPS might be the red shiny icon, and the blue alluring one is the combined SR shiny icon. Like, right now, you see a top 500 icon, it's like, I don't know which role.
I don't know if
or
you got
that's-
that from competitive Lucio Ball.
Yeah, right? Like, you have no
Which you do,
clue.
you can
and it's
do.
like, I would argue that is a late, like, I would argue Roll Q was more of almost a quick play, a little bit comp solution, and all these side systems were not given the love and care that they needed to make them feel coherent in a world with Roll Q. I don't know.
I think those are all good. No, I think those are all good ideas. I feel like all my stories are just my examples of being bad and abusing the ladder system, but I got top 500 combined while being masters on all 3 roles. Because there's just not that many people playing.
Have you paid attention? You can be 3,000 combined and get the top 500 icon, because there's not even enough players who play 25 matches on 3 roles that are above diamond. That's it. There is not enough players. I think last season NA on PC was 200 people played 25 matches on 3 different roles above diamond. Think about how fucking little that is. 200 people in a fucking like in an entire region.
Well, if we're saying there's 2 million monthly active users, the stat you quoted earlier, 200 of them are playing 25 games on each role in comp, at least in one region.
Which is not a lot for 2 months, relatively speaking.
Yeah, I mean, all I think these are the nitty-gritties. We could sit and go 2 hours on just these nitty-gritty little like side bits, right? Let alone the whole overall spiel that we've made. But yeah, again, I do recognize we're now about to hit the 4-hour mark soon. We're 3.5.
Yeah.
Is this a new record?
This is, I think this might be the longest group up ever. But it, like Sam said, I think it's been a very insightful one, and I, for one, am very, very grateful to all 3 of you. Sam's gone, but you 2 is still in this call. EeveeA, it's been an amazing first episode from you, if I can say that. You know, you've provided a lot of great insight and a lot of real nuances. And Sty, has always been a pleasure to talk to you, man. I feel so much more at home when other YouTubers are on this channel, because I'm like, this guy lives the same life I do outside of GM. Like just watching VOD reviews of or doing VOD reviews of like players in silver. If from my piece, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, go on, go ahead.
I was gonna say, from my concluding thing, I think I probably agree with everything you guys have all said is true. I do think it has to come down to a change of philosophy to some extent, because there's a million changes I could say, like about SR resets, or group queues and minimum requirements for playing comp, or blah blah blah. But I think that it can all only come if the Blizzard team make a conscious decision to say, we really want to take comp super seriously, super try hard.
Every aspect needs to be looked at. Every aspect.
Exactly. Because I think this is a great chance in Overwatch. We keep deferring to Overwatch 2, and hopefully it doesn't let us down. I mean,
it's
maybe
a new game though, right? It is a new game. It is. They've reset the rule book. It's like Overwatch is different now, and we've built a different game. So what's going to happen from here?
Exactly.
It is not the game we're playing, and that is, I think, is just the issue most of us have when we're talking about and legitimately talking about the problems Overwatch has. They're not going to be fixing Overwatch, and we're like, maybe we're putting too much, as I say, emphasis on things actually changing, and maybe this means we're building up Overwatch 2 to be this mega thing, and when it comes, it might not be that much, and we're like, oh, what's happening? Which I think is actually compounded by the length of time it's took to develop the game.
Yeah, the expectations are snowballing.
So
but at the same time,
it's a difficult one to manage.
I would argue for the people who are stuck around, the expectations are snowballing. For the people who have not stuck around, the bar is so low, anything will be good.
Yeah, we're so starved. Like, there's Apex people who complain about no new content in like a month, and we're so starved that we're like, oh my god, like they renamed a hero? Shit, let's come back and see what's all that about. Like, so we're kind of, our bar is very low. But yeah, just to round up, I think it would be great to kind of have, I think we can do it with Overwatch 2 basically, because we now have a very clear PvE section, which should hopefully, that's the way you can send the love and care to the people who just want to log in and do some fun stuff. And then you can say, okay guys, we gave you that, and here for the hardcore sweaty tryharders, here you go, we're really going to lean into this, and maybe even have 2 separate teams kind of handling that aspect.
Not to be semantic, but I think the average current existing player underappreciates how fucking fun PvE is gonna be. Like, we view it as like a new audience, which it will be, but it will be for us as well. It's gonna be fun. I'd argue
I'm
more
looking
fun
forward
when
to
we're
it.
not. I'd argue in its own way, it's gonna be more fun to not have to think about, oh no, my rank, oh no, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, I think we just have a lot to look forward to.
Until they integrate like challenge modes into PvE, it's for the speed of completing the missions and stuff. Then you'll have rank, and then it will become like the
Speed run.
mythic
No,
dungeon invitational for Warcraft, where they race each other through the dungeons. It'll be
I mean, okay,
introducing
that would be
Overwatch
fun.
League to PvE. Team 1 and 2 are racing through the mission. Who will come first?
It still would be
Yeah.
fun, I think, and still would allow plenty of
Hey.
opportunity for people to just play it chill as well as they do in World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
Anyways,
for sure.
guys, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I saw people asking in chat. This will be on Spotify and all the streaming services. If you see this in YouTube, which you probably will, all these guys' links are in the description. So please go check them out. Please go show them some love. Even right now on Twitch, !guests and then ! before their names. We'll bring up all their socials. So please check them out. Don't be confused by Stylosa as Samito. That's Stylosa down there. But yes, I really appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much for a wonderful, awesome chat. I'm going to send you guys to ML7 here, so go say hello to him. But yeah, it's been a wonderful chat, guys. Let's hope that some awesome things to come in Overwatch 2, and hopefully we've given some ideas here that are constructive and can be helpful for the future of the game, and that's all we can ask for, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
All
for
right,
having
guys.
me.
Well, that's it from us. Peace out. Have a good rest of your day.